The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. Starfleet built its entire philosophy on this foundation, that with enough knowledge, enough exploration, enough patience, any mystery could be solved. But what happens when something arrives that shouldn't exist? When sensors report readings that violate every established law? When the impossible materializes in the heart of Federation space, and the only choice is to face it with courage, curiosity, and the fragile hope that reason still matters? Captain James T. Kirk stood on the bridge of the USS Enterprise, watching his viewscreen display something that made no sense. "Magnify, Mr. Sulu." The image resolved. Where empty space had been moments ago, now hung a massive vessel unlike anything in Starfleet's database. It stretched over 500 meters, its hull a deep blue-gray that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The design defied classification, neither the elegant curves of Federation engineering nor the brutal angles of Klingon construction. Smooth sections transitioned into armored plating. What appeared to be torpedo tubes bristled along the flanks. The ship's profile suggested both a seafaring submarine and a deep space warship, as if two incompatible design philosophies had somehow merged. Spock, analysis. The Vulcan's fingers moved across his science station with practiced precision. His eyebrow rose, never a good sign. "Fascinating, Captain. The vessel's energy signature does not correspond to any known propulsion system. I am detecting residual subspace distortions consistent with, this is highly irregular." Irregular how? The spatial fabric surrounding the vessel shows evidence of dimensional displacement. The mathematical models suggest it did not travel through normal space to reach this location. It appears to have been inserted into our universe from elsewhere. Kirk absorbed that. Dimensional displacement. The Enterprise had encountered spatial anomalies before, alternate timelines, parallel universes, regions where the normal rules broke down. But those had been temporary phenomena, unstable rifts that collapsed quickly. This ship looked solid, real, and very much armed. Life signs. Approximately 200 humanoid readings. Physiologically similar to humans, though I would need more detailed scans to confirm species origin. "Uhura, any response to our hails?" The communications officer shook her head, her hand pressed to her earpiece. "Nothing on standard frequencies, Captain. I'm picking up transmissions from the vessel, but they're on a subspace band we don't use. The modulation is completely unfamiliar. I'm attempting to adjust our universal translator protocols." "Mr. Chekhov, tactical status." The young ensign's Russian accent thickened slightly as he delivered his report. "Vessel's weapon systems are active, Captain. I am detecting what appear to be missile batteries and some form of directed energy weapons. And sir, there is something else. A large concentration of energy in the forward section. I cannot identify its purpose, but the power readings are extraordinary." Kirk's instincts, honed through years of command, sent a clear message: this ship could fight, and fight hard. But whoever they were, they'd just been torn from their own universe and dropped into his. That made them dangerous, yes, but also frightened, confused, and potentially hostile out of pure self-preservation. Red alert. Shields up, but keep weapons offline. Uhura, keep trying to establish communication. Spock, I want continuous sensor readings on that subspace distortion. If it's still active, we need to know if anything else is coming through. The bridge lighting shifted to crimson. Around him, his crew moved with the calm efficiency he'd come to rely on. This was the heart of Starfleet's mission, not conquest, not domination, but reaching out to the unknown with open hands. Sometimes those hands needed to be ready to form fists, but that was always the last resort. The view screen flickered. Uhura gasped. "Captain, they're responding. Audio and visual coming through now." The image shifted from the exterior view of the mysterious vessel to its bridge. Kirk found himself looking at a young man, perhaps in his mid-20s, wearing a uniform that suggested military discipline, white with blue accents, crisp and formal. Dark hair framed a face marked by exhaustion and determination in equal measure. Behind him, Kirk could see other crew members at their stations, their expressions tense. "This is Captain James T. Kirk of the United Federation of Planets Starship Enterprise. We detected a massive spatial distortion at your location. Are you in distress? Do you require assistance?" The young captain's eyes narrowed. He spoke, and after a moment's delay, the universal translator converted his words into English. "This is Captain Shin Hayami of the Earth Defense Force space carrier Blue Noah. Our fold system malfunctioned during combat operations. Our sensors indicate we are no longer in our home system. Where are we? What is the United Federation of Planets?" Kirk exchanged a glance with Spock. "Earth Defense Force. Earth." The implications were staggering. "Captain Hayami, this may be difficult to accept, but our analysis suggests you've been displaced from your universe into ours. You're currently in Federation space, approximately 4 light-years from Starbase 12. We have no record of an Earth Defense Force or a vessel called Blue Noah." Shin's jaw tightened. Behind him, a female officer with communications gear leaned in, speaking rapidly. Shin nodded, then returned his attention to the view screen. "That's impossible. We were engaging Gotham Empire forces near Earth. Our fold drive was damaged, but dimensional displacement." He paused, clearly struggling with the concept. "You're saying we're no longer in our own reality?" "I'm afraid that appears to be the case. But Captain, you're not alone here. The Federation encompasses over 100 planets, countless species working together in peaceful cooperation. If you'll allow it, we can help you understand what's happened and explore options for Captain Kirk." Shin's voice carried the weight of command, despite his youth. "With respect, the Blue Noah is a military vessel on active combat duty. I appreciate your offer, but I need to consult with my crew and assess our situation before accepting assistance from an unknown faction. Request permission to hold position while we evaluate our circumstances." Kirk felt Spock's eyes on him. The Vulcan would be calculating probabilities, the chance this was a trick, a test, or genuine confusion. But Kirk read something in Shin's expression that transcended universes, a captain's responsibility for his crew, the need to project strength even when everything familiar had been stripped away. "Permission granted, Captain Hayami. But I should inform you that the subspace distortion that brought you here is still active and expanding. Our science officer believes it could destabilize if left unchecked. We're going to need to work together to seal it, or both our vessels may be at risk." Shin's expression didn't change, but Kirk saw the calculation behind his eyes. "Understood. Blue Noah will monitor the phenomenon from our position. Hayami out." The transmission ended. Kirk settled back in his command chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. On the view screen, the Blue Noah hung in space like a displaced god of war, beautiful, deadly, and utterly out of place. "Spock, your assessment." Captain Hayami appears genuine in his confusion. "The vessel's technology, while advanced in certain areas, shows no familiarity with our subspace communication protocols or warp field theory. I would estimate they are from a parallel Earth that developed along different technological lines, heavy emphasis on military capability and hybrid atmospheric space operations. They called it a carrier. That suggests they launch smaller craft." "Indeed. The vessel's internal structure includes multiple launch bays. I detect at least a dozen smaller spacecraft secured within." Kirk stood, moving to stand beside Uhura's station. "Lieutenant, I want you to compile a cultural database, basics about the Federation, Starfleet protocols, our mission profile. Make it accessible to them if they're willing to accept data transfer. And keep monitoring their internal communications. I want to know what they're saying when they think we can't hear." Uhura nodded. "Aye, Captain. Though sir, their encryption is unlike anything I've seen. It may take time to break through. Do your best." He turned to Spock. How long before that subspace rift becomes critical? At current expansion rates, approximately 47 hours before it begins affecting nearby star systems. However, Captain, there is another concern. Go on. The rift is not stable. I am detecting fluctuations that suggest it may not be fully closed on the other side. If Captain Hayami's universe is experiencing a corresponding phenomenon, there is a non-zero probability that additional vessels or entities could cross through before we seal it. Kirk's eyes returned to the view screen, to the alien warship that carried the name of his own homeworld's ancient flood myth. A ship built for war, torn from its reality and dropped into his. A crew trained to fight for survival against an enemy called the Gotham Empire, now facing a universe that valued exploration over conquest. Mr. Sulu, maintain current position. Match their orbit exactly. I want them to know we're not abandoning them, but we're also not closing distance without invitation. Aye, sir. Kirk returned to his chair. Somewhere on that vessel, Captain Hayami was having similar conversations with his crew, assessing threats, evaluating options, trying to lead when every certainty had been stripped away. Kirk understood that burden intimately. Command meant making choices with incomplete information, trusting instinct when logic offered no clear path. The Blue Noah had arrived carrying weapons that could potentially threaten the Enterprise. But they'd also arrived carrying something else, hope that they might find their way home. Kirk's job was to help them do that, if possible, but also to ensure that whatever came through that dimensional rift next didn't threaten the billions of lives depending on Starfleet to protect them. First contact protocols. Diplomatic negotiation. Scientific cooperation. These were the tools Starfleet had given him. But Kirk had learned long ago that sometimes the best tool was simply being willing to extend trust first, and hope it was returned. He pressed the intercom. Kirk to engineering. Scotty, I need you to start analyzing the subspace distortion near our position. Work with Spock on theoretical models for sealing a dimensional rift. And Scotty? Be creative. Aye, Captain. Though if you're asking me to patch a hole between universes, I'll be needing at least a wee bit more than the usual impossible. Kirk smiled despite the tension. You've never let that stop you before. The bridge settled into focused activity. On the view screen, the Blue Noah remained motionless, its running lights casting blue-white reflections across its armored hull. Two ships, two crews, two philosophies about to collide. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. Kirk leaned forward, elbows on his knees, watching and waiting. First contact was always a gamble. Sometimes you found allies. Sometimes you found enemies. And sometimes, you found people who were both, depending on the choices everyone made in the hours ahead. The subspace rift pulsed on the sensors, a wound in reality that refused to close. 47 hours until crisis. Two captains learning to trust. One chance to prevent catastrophe. The Enterprise held position, and waited for the Blue Noah to decide what came next. Inside the Blue Noah's main bridge, Captain Shin Hayami stood before a tactical display that showed readings his crew barely understood. The star patterns were wrong. The subspace frequencies didn't match Earth Defense Force protocols. Every sensor sweep confirmed what his instincts refused to accept: they were no longer home. Yuki, status report on external communications. Shin kept his voice level, aware that his crew was watching for any sign of panic. The communications officer, her short dark hair framing a face tight with concentration, looked up from her console. Captain, I've been analyzing their transmission protocols. Their universal translator is remarkable, it adapted to our language within seconds. But more concerning, I'm detecting multiple subspace relay stations in this region. Their infrastructure is vast, coordinated across light years. This isn't a small colonial outpost. It's a genuine interstellar civilization. Shin nodded slowly. The Enterprise had hailed them speaking of a federation spanning hundreds of planets. In his universe, humanity was still struggling to defend a single world against the Gotham Empire. The idea of peaceful cooperation on that scale felt like fiction. Engineering, how bad is it? Chief Engineer Sakata's voice crackled through the intercom, frustration evident. Captain, the fold drive is completely offline. Whatever happened when we jumped, it wasn't a normal malfunction. The power flow characteristics in this region of space don't match our baseline readings. It's as if the fundamental constants we designed our systems around have shifted. I can keep conventional systems running, but our primary propulsion is dead until we understand the physics of wherever we are. Shin's hands gripped the edge of the tactical display. The Blue Noah was a warship, built to move fast and strike hard. Without the full drive, they were reduced to sublight speeds, manageable in a single star system, but useless for interstellar operations. They were crippled. Can we adapt? Maybe. If we had detailed specifications on their propulsion technology, I could attempt a retrofit. But Captain, that would require trusting these people enough to let them access our core systems. And it would take weeks, possibly months. Weeks they didn't have. Shin glanced at the view screen, where the Enterprise maintained its parallel orbit. The vessel was smaller than the Blue Noah, more elegant in design, with a saucer-shaped primary hull and twin nacelles that glowed with contained energy. It looked more like an exploration ship than a warship, which either meant these people were naive, or they possessed weapons sophisticated enough that aggressive aesthetics were unnecessary. Tactical assessment, Lieutenant Tokugawa. The tactical officer pulled up comparative data. Sir, their vessel is fast. Our sensors detected warp signatures indicating faster-than-light capability before they matched our position. Weapons appear to be energy-based, what they call phasers and photon torpedoes. Shield strength is difficult to assess, but if their defensive technology matches their propulsion sophistication, they could pose a significant threat. However, he paused. However what? Their weapons are currently offline, Captain. They raised shields but haven't armed their primary systems. That's either confidence or genuine peaceful intent. Shin studied the Enterprise again. Captain Kirk had offered assistance without demanding anything in return. His tone had been diplomatic, even concerned. But the Earth Defense Force had learned bitter lessons about trusting strangers. The Gotham Empire had exploited human goodwill in the early days of contact, using diplomacy as a weapon before revealing their true conquest-driven nature. Yuki, what did you learn from monitoring their internal communications? Limited success, sir. Their encryption is different from ours, but I caught fragments. They're running sensor sweeps on the spatial distortion we came through. Their science officer, a Vulcan, whatever that is, believes it's expanding. They're concerned about destabilization. Meaning what? Meaning they think the rift could tear open wider. Potentially affecting nearby star systems with gravitational disruptions or radiation. Shin felt the weight of command settle heavier on his shoulders. If that rift expanded and caused destruction in this universe, the Blue Noah would be responsible. But if they cooperated with these strangers and it was a trap, his crew could be captured, his ship seized, and whatever slim chance they had of returning home would vanish. The bridge doors hissed open. Dr. Natsuko entered, her medical scanner still in hand. Captain, I've completed preliminary analysis of our crew's biometrics. Everyone's stable, though stress hormones are elevated across the board. But I detected something unusual when I scanned near the hull breach in Section 7. We don't have a hull breach. Exactly. But the sensors show microfractures in the molecular structure near where the fold drive discharged. It's as if our hull is slightly out of phase with local spacetime. Nothing immediately dangerous, but if we remain in this universe without adapting our systems, cumulative stress could lead to structural failures. Another clock ticking down. Shin made a decision. Open a channel to the Enterprise. Yuki worked her console. Channel open, Captain. Kirk's face appeared on the view screen, his expression neutral but attentive. Behind him, Shin could see the bridge crew, humans, mostly, though the science officer appeared almost human but with distinctly pointed ears and upswept eyebrows. Evolutionary variation. Alien species. This universe kept presenting mysteries. Captain Kirk, I've consulted with my senior staff. Our situation is complicated. Our primary propulsion system is non-functional in your universe's physical framework. We're also detecting structural stress that could become critical over time. I'm willing to discuss cooperation, but I need certain assurances. Kirk leaned forward slightly. I'm listening, Captain Hayami. First, the Blue Noah remains under Earth Defense Force command at all times. Any technical assistance you provide cannot compromise our operational security. Second, any data we share about the dimensional rift or our technology is exchanged mutually. We need to understand your propulsion systems if we're to have any hope of adapting ours. Third, we maintain the right to refuse any requests we deem contrary to our mission or crew safety. Shin watched Kirk's face carefully. This was the moment where true intentions revealed themselves. A hostile commander would reject such terms, demanding submission disguised as cooperation. The Gotham Empire excelled at that tactic. Kirk smiled, not smugly, but with what appeared to be genuine respect. Captain Hayami, those terms are completely acceptable. The Federation was built on the principle of sovereign cooperation. No member world surrenders its autonomy, and we extend that courtesy to visitors as well. As for technical exchange, I'd expect nothing less. You'd be foolish to trust us blindly, and I'd be foolish to expect it. Shin felt some of the tension in his shoulders ease. Then we have an understanding. What do you propose? I'd like to invite you and your senior staff to the Enterprise for a face-to-face meeting. No weapons, no subterfuge, just two crews trying to solve a problem that threatens both our vessels. My science officer has theories about sealing the dimensional rift, but he'll need detailed information about how your full drive operates. In exchange, my chief engineer can brief your team on warp field theory and matter-antimatter propulsion. Face-to-face. The oldest form of diplomacy, where body language and instinct mattered as much as words. Shin appreciated that. Agreed. My chief engineer, chief medical officer, communications officer, and tactical officer will accompany me. When? How about now? We can transport you directly to our transporter room. It's instantaneous matter-energy conversion. Completely safe, though I admit the first time can be disconcerting. Shin glanced at Yuki, who looked alarmed. Matter-energy conversion? That was theoretical technology even in their universe. The idea of disassembling someone at the molecular level and reassembling them elsewhere was the stuff of speculative science. Yet Kirk spoke of it casually, as if it were routine. We'll use our shuttle instead, if that's acceptable. I'd prefer to approach this step by step. Kirk nodded without hesitation. Of course. We'll extend our hangar bay and prepare for your arrival. Enterprise out. The transmission ended. Shin turned to his crew. Sakata, Natsuko, Tokugawa, Yuki, you're with me. Commander Yamato, you have the bridge. If anything goes wrong, do not engage unless they fire first. But if we don't return within 4 hours, assume hostile intent and take whatever action necessary to protect the ship. Yamato saluted sharply. Understood, Captain. We'll be ready. 20 minutes later, Shin sat in the pilot's seat of a Blue Noah shuttle, his senior staff strapped in behind him. The small craft detached from the carrier's launch bay and accelerated toward the Enterprise. Through the viewport, Shin got his first close look at Federation engineering. The Enterprise grew larger as they approached, its hull smooth and deliberately elegant. Running lights traced the saucer's edge. The twin warp nacelles glowed with barely contained power, pulsing rhythmically. Everything about the design spoke of confidence, of a civilization that had moved beyond mere survival and embraced exploration as purpose. Blue Noah shuttle, this is Enterprise Flight Control. Reducing hangar bay atmospheric force fields. You're cleared for approach vector 34 Mark II. Yuki translated the coordinates. Shin adjusted course, guiding the shuttle through the shimmering energy barrier that held atmosphere inside the hangar. The shuttle settled on the deck with barely a tremor. Through the viewport, Shin saw Kirk waiting with a small honor guard, no weapons visible, just formal uniforms and curious expressions. The captain stood at ease, hands clasped behind his back, projecting calm authority. Shin stood, straightened his uniform, and nodded to his team. Remember, we're representing the Earth Defense Force and our entire universe. Professional courtesy, but maintain vigilance. The shuttle hatch hissed open. Shin descended the ramp first, his officers following in precise formation. Kirk stepped forward, extending his hand in what appeared to be a greeting gesture. Captain Hayami, welcome aboard the Enterprise. Shin hesitated only a moment before accepting the handshake. Kirk's grip was firm but not aggressive. Captain Kirk. Thank you for the accommodation. May I introduce my first officer, Commander Spock. Kirk gestured to the Vulcan, who inclined his head formally but did not offer a hand. Fascinating, Spock said, his voice measured and analytical. Captain Hayami, your species appears physiologically identical to baseline humans. The probability that parallel evolution would produce such similarity across dimensional boundaries is astronomically small. I would theorize that both our universes share a common origin point, with divergence occurring at some point in the distant past. Shin blinked. That was a greeting. Scientific hypothesis delivered like small talk. I suppose that's possible. Commander, I'm afraid I don't recognize your species. I am Vulcan. We are members of the Federation, one of its founding species alongside humans. Our philosophy emphasizes logic, reason, and the suppression of emotion as a path to enlightenment. Suppression of emotion? Tokugawa muttered behind Shin. How is that even possible? Spock's eyebrow rose fractionally. Through rigorous mental discipline beginning in childhood. Emotions are not eliminated but controlled, allowing logic to govern decision-making processes. Kirk smiled. Spock's people are our most valued partners, Captain Hayami. Their perspective has saved us more times than I can count. But come, let's continue this in the briefing room. I imagine you have questions, and we certainly have several for you. As they walked through the Enterprise's corridors, Shin noted everything. The crew they passed wore color-coded uniforms, Command Gold, Science Blue, Operations Red. They moved with purpose but without the rigid military discipline he expected. People smiled, greeted each other casually. The atmosphere felt less like a warship and more like a community. The briefing room doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Inside, a curved table faced a large view screen. Kirk gestured to seats. Please, make yourselves comfortable. Coffee? We've got excellent Colombian, though I suppose your universe might have different varieties. Water will be fine, Shin said. His team settled around the table, maintaining professional posture despite obvious curiosity. Kirk took his seat at the head of the table, Spock standing beside him with a data pad. Let's start with the basics. Captain Hayami, you mentioned engaging something called the Gotham Empire. Can you tell us about them? Shin exchanged glances with his officers. How much to reveal? But if they wanted technical cooperation, context was necessary. The Gotham Empire is an expansionist alien civilization. They arrived in our solar system approximately 5 years ago, initially presenting themselves as peaceful explorers. Within months, they began orbital bombardment of Earth's major cities. The Earth Defense Force was created in response, a unified military organization combining all nations' resources to defend against extinction. Kirk's expression sobered. Total war. Yes. We've been fighting for survival ever since. The Blue Noah was designed as our primary offensive platform, a carrier capable of launching strike fighters while engaging capital ships directly. We were defending Earth's orbital platforms when the full drive malfunctioned. Or, apparently, functioned in a way we never anticipated. Spock tapped his data pad. "Captain, your vessel's energy signature suggests the full drive operates by compressing spacetime along a predetermined vector. Our warp drive functions differently. We create a subspace bubble that allows the ship to effectively exceed light speed without violating relativistic physics. The two technologies are theoretically compatible, but the dimensional transit may have destabilized your drive's exotic matter containment." Sakata leaned forward. "Exotic matter? We use zero-point energy extraction for power generation. Are you saying there's a fundamental incompatibility?" "Not incompatibility, calibration variance. Your universe's physical constants appear to differ from ours by approximately 0.03%. Small enough that basic chemistry and biology function identically, but significant enough to disrupt technologies dependent on precise quantum field manipulation." The engineer's eyes widened. "Then adapting our systems would require recalibrating every power distribution node on the ship." "Likely, yes. However, my initial calculations suggest Federation technology could be retrofitted to your vessel with acceptable integration times. Estimate: 3 weeks for preliminary systems, 2 months for full implementation." 2 months. Shin's stomach tightened. The Gotham Empire could conquer Earth in that time. Every moment they spent trapped here was a moment his world fought without its most powerful weapon. Kirk seemed to read his thoughts. "Captain, I understand the urgency. But there's another factor we need to discuss, the dimensional rift itself." "Spock." The Vulcan called up a three-dimensional display showing the spatial distortion. "The rift is expanding at an accelerating rate. Current projections indicate it will begin affecting local planetary gravity fields in 38 hours. If left unchecked, it could cause catastrophic seismic events across multiple inhabited worlds. We must close it." "But if you close it," Yuki said quietly, "we lose our only potential route home." Silence settled over the briefing room. Shin saw the calculation in Kirk's eyes. Billions of lives across Federation worlds weighed against 500 displaced warriors' hope of return. "There has to be another way," Shin said firmly. "Some method to stabilize the rift without sealing it permanently. If your science is as advanced as you claim." "We will explore all possibilities," Kirk interrupted gently. "But Captain, I need you to understand something about the Federation. We don't abandon people. If there's any way to return you home, we'll find it. But not at the cost of innocent lives. I think you understand that." Shin met Kirk's gaze. In the captain's eyes, he saw something familiar, the weight of command, the burden of choosing between terrible options. This man had made hard calls before. He would make them again. "I understand," Shin said. "But I also understand that my duty is to my crew and my world. We'll cooperate in stabilizing the rift. But I'm not giving up on finding a way home, Captain Kirk. Not now. Not ever." Kirk nodded slowly. "I wouldn't expect anything less. Now, let's figure out how to save both our universes." The briefing continued, two crews from different realities learning to speak the same language of science, duty, and survival. Outside the Enterprise, the dimensional rift pulsed with building energy, counting down toward crisis. The Blue Noah's engineering section hummed with unfamiliar activity. Commander Montgomery Scott stood before the massive full-drive assembly, tricorder in hand, shaking his head in what appeared to be equal parts admiration and bewilderment. Beside him, Chief Engineer Sakata watched the Starfleet officer's analysis with guarded curiosity. "Incredible," Scotty muttered, adjusting his tricorder settings for the third time. "You're compressing spacetime using controlled gravitational singularities, but the containment field architecture is nothing like our graviton polarity sources. It's elegant, in a completely mad sort of way. How do you prevent catastrophic field collapse when transitioning between compressed and normal space?" Sakata pointed to a series of crystalline matrices embedded in the drive housing. These regulate the energy cascade during fold transition. They're synthetic materials designed to handle extreme quantum stress. But in this universe, they're showing molecular fatigue. Whatever physical constants govern subspace here, they're slowly degrading our containment integrity. Scotty ran his tricorder over the crystals, frowning at the readings. I see it. Subspace variance is introducing harmonic instabilities. You've got maybe 72 hours before these matrices crack, and when they do, he whistled low. Let's just say you'll be having a very bad day. Can you help us adapt? The engineer scratched his chin thoughtfully. Maybe. Our dilithium crystal matrices serve a similar function in warp core regulation. If we could recalibrate your containment fields to resonate with local subspace frequencies, it might stabilize the degradation. But here's the problem, lad, doing that would require shutting down your power grid entirely for at least 6 hours while we swap out the field generators. 6 hours you'd be dead in space, completely vulnerable. Sakata glanced around the engineering bay, where several of his own crew worked alongside Starfleet personnel. The cooperation had been surprisingly smooth, technical language transcending cultural barriers. But vulnerability? That was a different matter entirely. I'll need to discuss that with Captain Hayami. Understood. But don't wait too long. Tick-tock, as they say. On the Enterprise's bridge, Captain Kirk stood beside Spock at the science station, studying the sensor readings of the dimensional rift. The anomaly had grown by another 0.3% in the past hour, its edges flickering with energy discharges that resembled miniature solar flares. Mr. Spock, talk to me about solutions. The Vulcan's fingers moved across his console with practiced efficiency. I have identified 3 potential approaches to sealing the rift, Captain. None are without significant risk. I'm listening. Option 1. We could attempt to collapse the rift by generating an inverse subspace field using both the Enterprise's deflector array and the Blue Noah's weapons systems in coordinated fashion. The combined energy output might be sufficient to force the dimensional tear to seal. However, the probability of success is only 47%, and failure would likely expand the rift exponentially. Kirk grimaced. Not exactly reassuring odds. Option 2. We could send a probe through the rift to the Blue Noah's universe, equipped with subspace transmitters that would allow us to create a resonance pattern between both sides. By matching the dimensional frequencies, we could theoretically guide the rift toward natural closure. Success probability, 62%. However, this requires several days to construct the appropriate probe and assumes the other side of the rift remains stable. Which brings us to option 3. Spock paused, his expression suggesting he found the third option particularly problematic. We could attempt to use the Blue Noah's fold drive in a controlled collapse. By initiating a partial fold transition while simultaneously flooding the rift with inverse tachyon particles, we might create a quantum seal. Success probability, 78%. However, this would permanently destroy the Blue Noah's fold drive and eliminate any possibility of using it to return Captain Hayami's crew to their universe. Kirk turned away from the console, hands clasped behind his back. 3 options, each demanding a different sacrifice. Risk both ships in a dangerous gambit. Spend time they might not have. Or ask Captain Hayami to destroy his only potential route home. The intercom chirped. Bridge, this is Scotty. Captain, I need to speak with you about the Blue Noah's engineering situation. It's urgent. Go ahead, Scotty. Sir, their containment systems are degrading faster than expected. We can stabilize them, but it requires a complete power shutdown for at least 6 hours. During that time, they'll have no shields, no weapons, no life support beyond emergency reserves. They'll be completely defenseless. Kirk felt the weight of command settle heavier on his shoulders. How long before the degradation becomes critical? 72 hours, give or take. After that, their full drive could suffer a catastrophic failure that would make our little rift problem look like a walk in the park. Understood. Kirk out. He turned to Spock. It seems our timeline just accelerated. Indeed. Captain, I would recommend. The tactical station erupted in urgent beeping. Sulu spun in his chair, his expression tense. Captain, sensors are detecting a new contact. Bearing 317 Mark IV. It's a Klingon battle cruiser, D7 class, dropping out of warp at the edge of sensor range. Kirk's jaw tightened. Of course. A massive energy distortion in space, an unknown vessel appearing from nowhere, the Klingon would have detected it too. And they would come to investigate with weapons ready. Red alert. Mr. Sulu, put us between the Klingon vessel and the Blue Noah. Uhura, open a channel to Captain Hayami immediately. The bridge lighting shifted to crimson. On the view screen, the Klingon cruiser resolved from warp distortion, its aggressive angular hull bristling with disruptor banks. It was already angling toward the Blue Noah's position. Captain Hayami on screen, Uhura announced. Shin's face appeared, his expression instantly alert. Behind him, klaxons sounded on the Blue Noah's bridge. Captain Kirk, we're detecting an unknown vessel approaching at high velocity. Their weapons systems are active. That's a Klingon battle cruiser. They're warriors, aggressive, and they'll view your ship as either a prize to capture or a threat to eliminate. I'm moving to intercept, but you need to understand, Klingon respects strength. If they perceive weakness, they'll attack without hesitation. Shin's eyes hardened with recognition. Warriors who respected only power. The Earth Defense Force knew that calculus intimately. Will they honor diplomatic protocols if we show we can defend ourselves? Possibly. But Captain, there's something you should know about Klingon culture. They value honor in combat above all else. If you demonstrate superior capability, they might respect you enough to negotiate. But half measures will only provoke them. Understood. Blue Noah will hold position and track their weapons systems. If they fire, we'll respond. The transmission ended. Kirk turned to Uhura. Open a channel to the Klingon vessel. Channel open, sir. Klingon vessel, this is Captain James T. Kirk of the USS Enterprise. The ship you're approaching is under Federation diplomatic protection. I'm requesting you hold position while we establish formal communication protocols. The response came quickly, and the voice carried the harsh confidence Kirk had come to expect from Klingon commanders. Enterprise, this is Commander Kor of the Imperial cruiser Klothos. We detected a massive subspace distortion in this sector. That vessel does not match any known design. We will investigate. Kor. Kirk knew that name, a cunning warrior with a reputation for tactical brilliance and a personal code of honor that occasionally transcended simple Klingon aggression. Dangerous, but not unreasonable. Perhaps. Commander Kor, the vessel in question experienced a dimensional displacement event. They're not from our universe and pose no threat to the Empire. I'm asking you to allow us to resolve this situation peacefully. A pause, then Kor's face appeared on screen. He was younger than Kirk expected, with sharp features and eyes that calculated like a predator evaluating prey. Kirk. I have heard of you. They say you are cunning in battle, that you think like a Klingon even if you dress like a diplomat. So tell me, if this vessel is so harmless, why does it carry weapons that could crack a planet's crust? Why does its energy signature suggest military purpose? Kirk met Kor's gaze steadily. Because they come from a universe at war, Commander. They're defenders, not conquerors. Warriors protecting their homeworld, much like the Empire protects QNOS. Surely you can respect that. Kor smiled, though it carried no warmth. Warriors, you say? Then they will not object to proving their worth. I challenge them, a test of skill and capability. If they are truly worthy of respect, they will demonstrate it. If not, he shrugged. Then they are weak, and weakness invites conquest. Commander, that's not how the Federation. I am not speaking to the Federation, Kirk. I am speaking to warriors who understand the language of strength. Kor's image shifted, replaced by the Klingon cruiser. The vessel's disruptor arrays began glowing with building energy. On the blue Noah, alarms shrieked. Lieutenant Tokugawa called out readings as his tactical display lit up with threat indicators. Captain, the Klingon vessel is charging weapons. Multiple disruptor banks targeting our position. Shin's hands gripped his command chair. This was it, first contact with this universe's version of hostile intent. The equation was brutally familiar: demonstrate capability or invite destruction. All hands, battle stations. Tokugawa, target their weapon systems but do not fire unless they strike first. Helm, evasive pattern delta. Let them know we can move. The blue Noah's massive bulk shifted with surprising agility, its maneuvering thrusters firing in coordinated bursts. The carrier rolled to present a narrower profile while simultaneously angling its weapons batteries toward the Klingon vessel. On the Klothos, Kor watched the blue Noah's maneuver with interest. Competent. They move well for such a large vessel. But can they fight? He turned to his weapons officer. Fire a warning shot. Close enough to test their shields, but not close enough to destroy. Let's see what they're made of. The disruptor bolt lanced across space, a brilliant green streak that splashed against the blue Noah's shields. Energy cascaded across the barrier, the shield generators absorbing the impact and holding firm, but barely. Warning lights flickered on Sakata's engineering console. Shields holding at 73%, the engineer reported. But Captain, that was a light strike. A full weapons barrage would overwhelm our defenses. Our shields aren't optimized for their weapon frequencies. Shin's mind raced through tactical options. They were outmatched defensively, but the blue Noah carried weapons the Klingon hadn't seen. Demonstration of capability, that's what Kor wanted. Fine. They'd demonstrate. Tokugawa, ready the gravity torpedo. Minimal yield, targeted on empty space between us and the Klingon vessel. Show them we have teeth without actually biting. The tactical officer's hands moved across his console. Gravity torpedo armed and locked. Ready on your command. Shin took a breath. This would either earn respect or provoke total war. Fire. The blue Noah's forward hull opened, revealing the massive barrel of the gravity torpedo launcher. Energy coalesced, reality itself seeming to bend and compress at the weapon's muzzle. Then it fired. The torpedo streaked into space, not a conventional explosive projectile but a contained gravitational singularity, spinning at impossible velocities. It detonated precisely where Shin had targeted, between the two vessels, and space itself screamed. The singularity expanded for 3 seconds, creating a visible distortion like a lens warping starlight. Debris and cosmic dust within range were instantly compressed into impossible density before the torpedo's containment field collapsed and released the captured matter in a brilliant flash. On the Enterprise, Spock's eyebrow climbed toward his hairline. Fascinating. Captain, that weapon generates a temporary gravitational anomaly of approximately 40,000 gravities within a 500-meter radius. Any ship caught in that field would be crushed to molecular density. Kirk stared at the fading energy signature. Scotty, what would that do to the Enterprise? Compressed into something about the size of your fist, Captain. Maybe smaller. On the Klothos, Kor laughed, a sharp bark of genuine appreciation. Now that is a weapon worthy of song. They carry miniature black holes as armament. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming with new respect. Helm, hold position. Weapons, stand down. These warriors have proven they are not prey. Kirk exhaled slowly. Shin had gambled correctly, show enough strength to earn respect without actually destroying the Klingon ship and triggering war. It was a move Kirk himself might have made. Uhura, hail Captain Hayami. Shin appeared on screen, his expression carefully controlled. Captain Kirk. That was impressive, Captain. And risky. But I think you just spoke Kor's language more effectively than I could have. He's standing down. For now. But warriors like that don't forget potential threats. We'll need to be ready if he decides to test us again. Agreed. But right now, we have a more immediate problem. Scotty reports your systems are degrading. We need to start repairs soon, which means you'll be vulnerable. And now we have Klingon watching our every move. Shin nodded grimly. Then we'd better figure out how to close that dimensional rift quickly, before more complications arrive. Because Captain, I have a feeling our problems are just beginning. Kirk couldn't argue with that assessment. The dimensional rift pulsed on sensors, the blue Noah's systems ticked toward failure, and somewhere out there, Commander Kor was calculating his next move. First Contact had become a chess match played with starships and universes hanging in the balance. Commander Kor stood in the Klothos's observation lounge, a goblet of Warnog in hand, studying the two vessels that held position near the spatial anomaly. The Enterprise, Kirk's ship, predictable in its Federation righteousness. And the blue Noah, now that was interesting. A warship from another universe, carrying weapons that could crush matter itself. Commander, we have completed our analysis of the unknown vessel's capabilities. His science officer, a gray-bearded veteran named Korax, approached with a data slate. Their weapons technology is concerning. The gravitational weapon they demonstrated generates forces beyond our current defensive capabilities. A direct hit would destroy any ship in the fleet. Kor took a long drink, savoring the burn. Which means they are either too dangerous to allow into this universe, or too valuable to allow the Federation to claim exclusively. He set the goblet down with deliberate care. Open a channel to the blue Noah. I wish to speak with their commander directly. On the blue Noah's bridge, Yuki looked up from her communications console with surprise. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Klingon vessel. They're requesting direct communication with you. Shin exchanged glances with Commander Yamato, who had returned to the bridge after the brief engagement. Put it through. Kor's face appeared on the view screen, his expression carrying what might have been amusement. Captain Hayami of the Blue Noah. I am Commander Kor of the Klingon Empire. Your demonstration was educational. A weapon that weaponizes gravity itself. The Klingon Science Council will compose entire treatises about the theoretical implications. But I am a warrior, not a scientist, so I will speak plainly. You have impressed me. Shin kept his voice neutral. I'm glad we could reach an understanding without further conflict. Understanding? Kor laughed. No, Captain. I understand only that you carry power sufficient to threaten any vessel in this quadrant. But power without purpose is merely danger. So I must ask, what are your intentions? Will you side with the Federation and their endless diplomatic protocols? Will you seek alliance with the Empire and join warriors who appreciate strength? Or will you attempt independence, navigating between powers far larger than your single vessel? It was a direct question that demanded an honest answer. Shin considered his response carefully. The Klingon clearly valued straightforward communication, and deception would likely be detected and punished. Commander Kor, my intentions are simple. Return my crew to our universe where we are needed to defend our homeworld. We have no interest in your political conflicts or territorial disputes. But until we find a way home, we will defend ourselves against any threat, regardless of origin. Kor nodded slowly. Honest. I appreciate that, Captain. But you should understand something about this universe you find yourself in. The Federation will offer you help wrapped in idealistic philosophy. They will speak of peaceful cooperation and mutual benefit. And they will mean every word, which makes them predictable. The Klingon Empire respects strength and rewards loyalty. Ally with us, and you will have the resources of a warrior culture behind you. Refuse, and you remain adrift between powers, vulnerable to whichever force decides you are too dangerous to tolerate. Is that a threat, Commander? It is reality, Captain. The Federation has protocols, rules, procedures that constrain their actions. The Empire has fewer such limitations. I personally have no desire to destroy a vessel as magnificent as yours, but my superiors may feel differently when they learn of your capabilities. Better to be allied than catalogued as a future threat. Before Shin could respond, Lieutenant Tokugawa interrupted urgently. Captain, sensors are detecting new energy fluctuations from the dimensional rift. It's expanding again, faster than before. On the Enterprise, Spock delivered the same report with characteristic precision. Captain, the rift has entered an accelerated expansion phase. Current rate suggests it will reach critical instability in 17 hours, significantly faster than previous projections. Kirk spun toward Uhura. Get me both Captain Hayami and Commander Kor. Conference call, now. Moments later, the view screen split into 3 sections, Kirk, Shin, and Kor, each commander facing a crisis that transcended their individual agendas. Gentlemen, Kirk began, our scientists are detecting rapid destabilization of the dimensional rift. If it continues expanding at current rates, it will begin affecting planetary systems within the day. Whatever political considerations exist between us, they're irrelevant if we don't address this immediately. Kor's expression turned serious. Kirk, the Empire has 3 colony worlds within 2 light-years of this position. If your scientists are correct, millions of Klingon citizens could be at risk. What do you propose? My science officer has developed a plan to seal the rift using coordinated energy emissions from multiple vessels. But it requires precise timing and cooperation between all 3 ships. Shin leaned forward. What kind of coordination? Spock's voice joined the conversation, calm and analytical. Each vessel would need to position itself at specific coordinates forming a triangular pattern around the rift. On my signal, you would simultaneously emit inverse polarity energy beams targeted at the rift's quantum signature. The combined output should create a resonance cascade that forces the dimensional tear to collapse. Should. Kor's tone carried skepticism. What is the probability of success? 68%, assuming all 3 vessels maintain precise beam coherence for 43 seconds. Any deviation in timing or energy output reduces success probability exponentially. Shin studied the tactical implications. Commander Spock, our weapons systems aren't designed for sustained beam emissions. We fire projectiles and energy bursts, not continuous streams. Can we adapt our systems in time? Affirmative, Captain Hayami. My engineering team can work with your chief engineer Sakata to modify your forward disruptor arrays for sustained emission. Estimated time, 6 hours. 6 hours during which my ship needs to undergo power system repairs to prevent containment failure, Shin said quietly. We'd be completely vulnerable while both operations proceed simultaneously. Kor seized on that immediately. Vulnerable to anyone who might view a disabled superweapon as an irresistible target. Captain Hayami, this is precisely why you need allies. The Enterprise cannot defend you alone if hostile forces arrive. But if the Klingon Empire guarantees your security during repairs. Commander Kor, Kirk interrupted, his voice carrying warning. This isn't the time for recruitment speeches. Lives are at stake, Klingon, Federation, and neutral worlds alike. I am not recruiting, Kirk. I am offering practical assistance. My ship maintains full combat readiness. I can provide security while the Blue Noah undergoes repairs and the Enterprise coordinates the scientific aspects of this operation. In exchange, Captain Hayami shares technical specifications of his gravitational weapons with Klingon scientists. A fair trade, protection for knowledge. Shin felt the trap closing. Accept Kor's offer and provide weapons technology to a warrior culture. Refuse and risk attack while defenseless. Trust Kirk's Federation completely and potentially become dependent on their assistance. Every option carried consequences that extended beyond the immediate crisis. "I need to discuss this with my senior staff," Shin said finally. "Give me 1 hour." Kirk nodded. "Agreed. But Captain, 1 hour is all we can spare. That rift isn't waiting for diplomatic negotiations." The transmission ended. Shin immediately called his officers to the bridge conference room: Yamato, Sakata, Tokugawa, Natsuko, and Yuki. They gathered around the tactical display showing both the Enterprise and Klothos positioned near the pulsing rift. "Recommendations," Shin said without preamble. Yamato spoke first. "Captain, allying with the Klingon feels wrong. They're aggressive, militaristic, and they view our weapons as tools for conquest. But tactically, Kor is correct, we're vulnerable during repairs. Having a battle-ready warship providing security makes strategic sense." Sakata added, "The technical exchange worries me. If we share gravitational weapon specifications, we're potentially arming a hostile power with devastating capability. But if we don't cooperate and the rift destroys inhabited worlds, we're responsible for those deaths. There's no clean option here." Tokugawa leaned over the display. "Sir, I've been analyzing both the Enterprise and Klothos. The Federation ship is powerful but designed primarily for exploration, strong shields, good weapons, but optimized for versatility rather than pure combat. The Klingon vessel is purpose-built for war. If shooting starts while we're disabled, Kor's ship would be our best protection. But can we trust him?" Yuki asked quietly. "He's been honest about viewing us as either asset or threat. What happens after the rift is sealed and we're no longer needed for this crisis?" Dr. Natsuko had been silent, but now she spoke with careful consideration. "Captain, I've been studying the medical and psychological profiles we've gathered about these cultures. The Federation values cooperation and diplomatic solutions. They'll help us because it's consistent with their principles. The Klingon value strength and honor. They'll respect us as long as we remain powerful and useful. Neither is inherently trustworthy, but both operate according to predictable philosophies. The question isn't who to trust, but which philosophy serves our needs better in this moment." Shin absorbed all of it, weighing centuries of military strategy against an impossible situation. The Earth Defense Force had learned bitter lessons about alliances. The Gotham Empire had taught humanity that cooperation could be a weapon. But they'd also learned that isolation guaranteed defeat. "Here's what we're going to do," Shin said decisively. "We'll accept Kor's security guarantee, but with conditions. We share theoretical specifications of the gravity torpedo, the physics and principles, but not the complete engineering schematics or manufacturing processes. Enough for their scientists to understand what we're doing, not enough to replicate it immediately. In exchange, Kor's ship maintains defensive perimeter during our repairs." "And the Federation?" Yamato asked. "We work with them on the technical aspects of sealing the rift. Their scientific knowledge is clearly superior, and Kirk has been straightforward about his intentions. But we make it clear, we're cooperating as equals, not as supplicants requesting Federation membership or protection." Yuki nodded approvingly. "Playing both sides. Risky, but it maintains our independence." "It's not playing both sides," Shin corrected. "It's recognizing that we need both the Federation's science and the Klingons' military protection. We're leveraging the resources of two rival powers without committing exclusively to either. It's survival, not politics." Tokugawa smiled grimly. "The Gotham Empire would do the same thing. Use enemy resources against themselves." "Exactly. We learn from the best worst teachers." Shin stood. "Yuki, open channels to both Kirk and Kor. Let's see if we can make this work." Minutes later, the three-way conversation resumed. Shin laid out his proposal with military precision: Klingon security, Federation technical cooperation, limited information sharing with both parties, and clear understanding that the Blue Noah remained an independent command. Kirk responded immediately. "Captain Hayami, those terms are acceptable to the Federation. We're not interested in controlling you, just in solving this crisis and helping you find a way home if possible. Kor took longer to reply, clearly calculating the benefits versus costs. Finally, he nodded. Captain Hayami, you negotiate like a Klingon, direct, strategic, unafraid to leverage your position. I accept your terms. The Klothos will maintain defensive perimeter during your repairs. But know this, I will remember that you carry weapons capable of destroying worlds. The Empire does not forget such things. Neither does the Earth Defense Force, Commander. We'll remember that you could have attacked us when we were vulnerable, but chose cooperation instead. That counts for something. Kor's expression shifted, not quite a smile, but something approaching respect. Perhaps, Captain. Perhaps it does. Now, shall we save a few billion lives before they get vaporized by collapsing dimensional physics? Kirk allowed himself a slight smile. Commander Kor, that might be the most diplomatic thing I've ever heard you say. Do not get used to it, Kirk. I am still a warrior. I simply prefer my enemies conscious and capable when I defeat them. Dead planets make poor adversaries. The three commanders synchronized their operational timelines. The Blue Noah would begin simultaneous power system repairs and weapons array modifications. The Enterprise would coordinate sensor networks and prepare deflector beam emissions. The Klothos would establish patrol patterns and monitor for additional threats. 17 hours until the rift reached critical instability. 6 hours of vulnerable repairs. 43 seconds of perfect coordination required to seal a dimensional tear. Shin returned to the Blue Noah's bridge and settled into his command chair. Around him, his crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for operations that would either save billions of lives or doom them all. On the view screen, the dimensional rift pulsed like a wound in reality, growing larger with each passing moment. Through that tear, somewhere impossibly distant, the Gotham Empire continued its war against Earth. Shin's crew belonged there, fighting that battle. But for now, they fought a different battle in a different universe. And they fought alongside strangers who might become allies, enemies, or something more complex than either label could capture. Commander Yamato approached quietly. Captain, the crew is ready. They trust your judgment. I hope that trust isn't misplaced, Shin replied softly. Because we're about to bet everything on cooperation between three ships that have no reason to trust each other. Isn't that what the Earth Defense Force does every day? Trust people to fight beside us when extinction is the alternative? Shin smiled despite the tension. When you put it that way, this is just another day at the office. The Blue Noah systems began shutting down in carefully orchestrated sequence as repair teams moved into position. Within minutes, the massive carrier would be deaf, blind, and defenseless, protected only by a Klingon commander's word and a Federation captain's promise. In the void between stars, three ships prepared to attempt something unprecedented. And the rift continued to grow, counting down toward catastrophe. The Blue Noah floated in darkness, its running lights dimmed to emergency reserves. Inside the engineering section, teams worked frantically under harsh portable illumination as the main power grid remained offline. Chief Engineer Sakata moved between stations, coordinating with both his own crew and the Starfleet engineers who had transported over to assist. Montgomery Scott crouched beside an open access panel, his hands deep in Blue Noah's power distribution network. Bloody hell, your people built this to last through a planetary bombardment. I've never seen such redundant fail-safes. Sakata allowed himself a thin smile. When you're fighting for species survival, you over-engineer everything. A disabled ship is a destroyed ship. He checked his chronometer. We're 3 hours into the shutdown. How much longer until the containment field generators are replaced? Another 90 minutes, if we're lucky and nothing explodes. The tricky bit is calibrating them to local subspace frequencies without any power to test the settings. We'll essentially be doing it blind and praying the math holds when we bring systems back online. On the Blue Noah's bridge, running on backup power and dim emergency lighting, Commander Yamato sat in the command chair monitoring what few systems remained functional. The view screen showed the Klothos maintaining patrol at 2,000 kilometers, its weapons arrays active and scanning. Lieutenant Tokugawa reported from the tactical station, his console running on independent power cells. "Commander, the Klingon vessel has adjusted its patrol pattern. They're now positioned between us and the most likely approach vectors from Klingon space. They're actually protecting us." "Kor keeps his word, apparently," Yamato murmured. "Let's hope that continues." Yuki's communications station crackled to life. "Commander, I'm receiving a transmission from the Enterprise. Captain Kirk wants to speak with Captain Hayami. Route it to the captain's ready room. And Yuki, keep monitoring Klingon military frequencies. If Kor's superiors decide to override his agreement, we'll need advance warning." In his ready room, illuminated by a single emergency lamp, Shin accepted Kirk's transmission. The Federation captain's face appeared on the small display, his expression concerned but controlled. "Captain Hayami, how are your repairs progressing?" "On schedule, barely. We should have power restored in approximately 90 minutes. Your chief engineer Scott is impressively skilled. And remarkably creative with profanity when things don't cooperate." Kirk smiled. "Scotty's the best engineer in Starfleet. If he says it can be done, it will be done. Though you might want to cover your crew's ears when he's working, his vocabulary gets colorful under pressure. I've led military engineers through emergency repairs during active combat, Captain Kirk. I assure you, profanity is universal." Shin's expression sobered. "How is the rift behaving?" "Not well. Spock reports the expansion rate has increased again. We're now projecting critical instability in approximately 14 hours. That gives us very little margin for error once your systems are restored." "Understood. My weapons officers are standing by to implement Spock's modifications to our disruptor arrays. The moment we have power, we'll begin the calibrations." Kirk hesitated, then leaned forward slightly. "Captain, may I speak candidly?" "Please. You're in an impossible situation. Trapped in a universe not your own, forced to cooperate with strangers while your homeworld fights without you. I can't imagine what that's like. But I want you to know, the Federation's offer of assistance isn't conditional. Whether or not you decide to align with us politically, we'll still help you find a way home if it's possible. That's not strategy, it's simply the right thing to do." Shin studied Kirk's face, searching for deception or hidden agenda. He found only sincerity, which was almost more unsettling. The Earth Defense Force had learned to navigate a universe where every offer came with costs, every alliance carried betrayal risk. "Captain Kirk, in my experience, nothing is ever given freely. Everyone wants something, even if it's just to feel virtuous for helping. What does the Federation want from the Blue Noah?" Kirk considered the question thoughtfully. "Honestly? Knowledge. Understanding. Your technology represents scientific principles we've never encountered. Your experience fighting a total war offers insights we've been fortunate enough not to need. But more than that, Captain, the Federation was founded on the idea that diversity makes us stronger. Different perspectives, different solutions, different ways of seeing the universe. You and your crew represent that diversity in its most extreme form, literally another reality's approach to the same challenges we face. That's valuable beyond measure, but it's not something we can take. It has to be shared willingly. And if we choose not to share, if we take your help with the rift and then go our own way, then you go your own way. We might think it's a missed opportunity, but it's your choice to make. The Federation doesn't coerce cooperation, Captain. We learned centuries ago that forced alliance breeds resentment, not partnership." Shin wanted to believe that. The philosophy was admirable, idealistic in the way only a civilization that had achieved peace could afford. But idealism didn't survive contact with existential warfare. "Captain Kirk, I appreciate your honesty. But you should understand something about the Earth Defense Force. We were created in fire, forged by an enemy that gave us no choice but total victory or extinction. Every decision we make is calculated for survival. Trust, for us, isn't given, it's earned through demonstrated reliability under pressure. The Federation may operate on principles, but we operate on results. I understand that, Kirk said quietly. And I respect it. All I ask is that you judge us by our actions, not your past experiences with betrayal. We're not your Gotham Empire, Captain Hayami. Before Shin could respond, the ready room lights flickered and strengthened. The background hum of power systems resumed. Sakata's voice came through the intercom with audible relief. Captain, primary power restored. Containment fields are holding at stable resonance. We're running diagnostics now, but preliminary readings look good. We're back in business. Shin felt tension he hadn't fully acknowledged drain from his shoulders. Excellent work, Chief Engineer. Begin weapons array modifications immediately. He returned his attention to Kirk. It appears we're operational again. Let's hope your science officer's plan works, Captain. Because I'm not sure this universe can handle much more stress. Agreed. Enterprise out. The transmission ended. Shin stood and returned to the bridge, where lights were gradually coming back to full power and stations were resuming normal function. His crew looked tired but determined, and he felt a surge of pride. They had adapted to impossible circumstances without breaking. Commander Yamato, status report. All primary systems restored, Captain. Shields at full capacity, weapons systems coming online. Engineering reports the new containment field generators are holding perfectly within acceptable parameters. We're no longer facing degradation. Tokugawa, begin the weapons modifications. How long until we can generate the sustained beam emission Spock specified? The tactical officer worked his console, pulling up specifications the Enterprise had transmitted during repairs. Approximately 3 hours, sir. We're essentially retrofitting our pulse disruptor arrays to function as continuous emission projectors. It's not what they were designed for, but the principles are similar enough. We'll have reduced firepower during the modification process. Acceptable. Coordinate with the Enterprise science team. Shin settled into his command chair, feeling the ship's power thrumming through the deck plates. They were vulnerable no longer. On the Klothos, Commander Kor watched his sensors confirm the Blue Noah's power restoration with mixed feelings. The massive carrier was once again a fully operational warship, which meant it was once again a potential threat. But it also meant his protection duty was nearly complete, and the three-ship cooperation could proceed. Korax, analysis of the dimensional rift's current state. The science officer's expression was grim. Commander, it has expanded another 8% during the Blue Noah's repairs. The quantum instability is approaching cascade threshold. If we don't seal it within the next 12 hours, the feedback effects will begin causing gravitational distortions in nearby star systems. The Empire's colonies are at significant risk. Kor's jaw tightened. Millions of Klingon civilians, warriors and their families, workers and children, all depending on commanders like him to protect them. It was a responsibility he took seriously, regardless of his personal ambitions. Maintain position. When the Enterprise initiates their sealing attempt, we'll be ready. And Korax, prepare full sensor analysis of the operation. Whether this succeeds or fails, the Empire's scientists will want detailed data on dimensional manipulation technology. Yes, Commander. Kor stared at the view screen, watching the rift pulse with building energy. 3 ships, 3 different philosophies, all working toward the same goal. It was almost poetic, if one appreciated irony. The Federation with their ideals, the Blue Noah with their survival instincts, and the Empire with their pragmatic strength. Separately, they represented different visions of how civilizations should operate. Together, they might just save billions of lives. He poured another goblet of warnog. To strange alliances, he muttered, drinking deeply. On the Enterprise, Spock stood at his science station coordinating the complex calculations required for the rift sealing operation. Data streamed in from both the Blue Noah and Klothos, their sensor networks now integrated into a unified monitoring system. Captain, all three vessels are now operational and positioned correctly. The Blue Noah's weapons modifications are progressing on schedule. We should be ready to attempt rift closure in approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes. Kirk reviewed the tactical display. 3 ships arranged in perfect triangular formation around the pulsing dimensional tear, each positioned exactly where Spock's calculations demanded. It was elegant in a way, 3 powers that normally existed in tension, now working in precise coordination. Spock, let me ask you something. What are the odds that all 3 ships maintain perfect beam coherence for the required 43 seconds? The Vulcan's eyebrow rose fractionally. Captain, I have already provided that probability estimate. 68%, assuming. I know the technical numbers. I'm asking about the human element. Or Klingon element. Or whatever we should call the Blue Noah crew. Can we actually coordinate that precisely under pressure? Spock paused, considering the question with uncharacteristic thoughtfulness. Captain, statistically, multicultural cooperation under crisis conditions shows highly variable success rates. However, in this specific scenario, all 3 commanders have demonstrated competence, integrity, and commitment to mission objectives. The probability of catastrophic coordination failure is acceptably low. Acceptably low. That's reassuring. Captain, certainty is an illusion. We can only act based on available data and reasonable projections. The alternative, allowing the rift to destabilize naturally, carries a 100% probability of catastrophic consequences. 68% success odds are significantly preferable. Kirk smiled slightly. Spock, sometimes I forget that beneath all that logic, you're an optimist. I am Vulcan, Captain. We do not have optimism. We have mathematically justified confidence. Whatever helps you sleep at night, Mr. Spock. The hours ticked down. On the Blue Noah, final modifications were completed and tested. On the Klothos, weapons officers ran practice targeting sequences. On the Enterprise, Spock refined his calculations to the final decimal point. 3 ships. 3 crews. 1 chance. The dimensional rift continued its countdown toward catastrophe, unaware of and unconcerned with the desperate coordination happening around it. Physics didn't care about cooperation or ideology or determination. It simply followed its own inexorable rules. Captain Shin stood on his bridge, watching the rift pulse on sensors. In a few hours, they would attempt something unprecedented, coordinated action between vessels from different universes and different philosophies, betting billions of lives on precise execution. It was, he reflected grimly, exactly the kind of impossible situation the Earth Defense Force trained for. All stations, final preparation protocols, he ordered. Tokugawa, I want weapon systems at peak efficiency. Helm, maintain position within centimeter precision. Engineering, if anything even thinks about malfunctioning, I want to know immediately. Around him, his crew responded with practiced efficiency. They were ready. The question was whether ready would be enough. The dimensional rift had grown massive, its edges now visible to the naked eye as a shimmer of distorted starlight. On the Enterprise's view screen, it resembled a wound in space itself, reality torn open and bleeding exotic energies into normal spacetime. Spock stood at his science station, monitoring readings that grew more alarming by the minute. Captain, we are approaching the point of no return. If we do not initiate the sealing sequence within the next 90 minutes, the rift will enter uncontrolled cascade. At that point, no amount of coordinated energy projection will be sufficient. Kirk opened a 3-way channel. Captains Hayami and Kor, this is Kirk. Mr. Spock advises we're running out of time. Are both vessels ready to proceed? Shin's face appeared on one section of the split screen. Blue Noah is ready, Captain Kirk. Weapons arrays are calibrated and locked on target coordinates. We can maintain beam coherence for the required duration. Kor's image occupied the other section, his expression carrying warrior's focus. The Klothos stands ready. My weapons officers have practiced the targeting sequence 17 times. We will not fail in our part, Kirk. Then let's synchronize our approach. Mr. Spock will transmit the final firing coordinates to both vessels. On his mark, all three ships will emit sustained inverse polarity beams at the specified quantum frequency. Maintain beam stability for exactly 43 seconds, then cease fire simultaneously. Any deviation risks catastrophic feedback. Understood, Shin acknowledged. Klingon do not deviate from battle plans, Kor added with pride. We will hold formation. Spock's fingers moved across his console with Vulcan precision. Transmitting coordinates now. All vessels should confirm targeting lock before we proceed. On the Blue Noah, Lieutenant Tokugawa studied the incoming data with intense concentration. The coordinates weren't simply spatial positions, they represented specific quantum signature frequencies that had to be matched exactly. Captain, target coordinates locked. Our disruptor arrays are configured to emit at the specified inverse polarity. However, sir, I should note that maintaining this kind of sustained beam for 43 seconds will drain our weapons capacitors to 15% capacity. If something goes wrong and we need to defend ourselves, we'll be vulnerable, Shin finished. Understood. But if we don't seal this rift, we won't have to worry about defending ourselves because we'll all be dead. Proceed with targeting lock confirmation. The Klothos weapons officer delivered similar news to Kor. Commander, sustained emission at this power level will require diverting energy from shields during the operation. We will be at reduced defensive capability. Kor's eyes gleamed with something approaching excitement. This was the kind of calculated risk that separated adequate commanders from legendary ones. All energy to weapons, full power to structural integrity fields. If we're going to punch a hole in reality, we'll do it with maximum force. On the Enterprise, Uhura monitored all communication channels, ensuring perfect coordination. Captain, both vessels have confirmed targeting lock. All three ships are ready. Kirk settled into his command chair, feeling the familiar weight of command crystallize into absolute focus. Billions of lives depended on the next few minutes. Three ships that should be rivals, working in perfect synchronization. It was either brilliant or insane, possibly both. Mr. Spock, you have the con. Execute on your mark. The Vulcan's voice carried across all three bridges with calm authority. All vessels, this is Commander Spock coordinating from the Enterprise. Initiate power buildup to weapons arrays. On my mark, begin sustained beam emission targeted at transmitted coordinates. Countdown commencing in 30 seconds. On the Blue Noah, Shin gripped his command chair's armrests. Around him, his bridge crew sat at rigid attention, every eye locked on their stations. This was the moment, succeed or watch both universes tear themselves apart. 20 seconds, Spock's voice continued. All vessels report readiness status. Blue Noah ready, Shin confirmed. Klothos ready, Kor's voice carried absolute confidence. Enterprise ready, Kirk added. 10 seconds. Power readings nominal across all three vessels. 9. 8. 7. The countdown continued with mechanical precision. On each ship, weapons officers' hands hovered over firing controls. Engineering teams monitored power distribution networks, ready to respond instantly to any fluctuation. 3. 2. 1. Mark. All vessels, fire. Three beams lanced across space simultaneously, the Enterprise's phaser arrays converted to sustained emission, the Klothos's disruptor banks configured for continuous output, and the Blue Noah's modified weapons systems channeling exotic energies with unprecedented precision. The beams converged on the rift's quantum signature, striking at 3 precisely calculated points arranged in triangular formation. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Where the beams contacted the rift's edges, reality itself seemed to scream. Energy cascaded in brilliant patterns, colors that shouldn't exist in normal spacetime flashing across the view screens. The rift began to contract, folding in on itself as the coordinated inverse polarity fields forced the dimensional tear to collapse. "Maintain beam coherence," Spock commanded. 27 seconds remaining. Power fluctuation detected on Klothos, compensating with increased output from Enterprise. On the Klingon vessel, warning klaxons shrieked as power systems strained under the sustained load. The weapons officer called out urgently, "Commander, port disruptor array is overheating. We're approaching critical thermal threshold." Kor's response was immediate and decisive. "Reroute coolant from life support. All power to weapons until the operation completes. We do not break formation." Temperature readings climbed on tactical displays, but the Klothos's beam remained steady, unwavering despite the strain. On the Blue Noah, similar challenges emerged. Chief Engineer Sakata's voice came through the intercom with controlled urgency. "Captain, the containment field generators we just installed are showing stress fractures. They're holding for now, but if we push beyond the 43-second mark, they might fail catastrophically." "Then we'll stop at exactly 43 seconds, Shin replied calmly. "Tokugawa, maintain targeting lock. Do not deviate by even a millimeter." The tactical officer's knuckles were white on his console. "Aye, sir." "Lock holding steady." 15 seconds, Spock announced. Rift contraction proceeding within acceptable parameters. Quantum signature stabilizing. 10 seconds. Maintain full power output. The rift was shrinking rapidly now, its edges pulling inward like a wound closing. But it was fighting back, exotic energies pulsed outward in waves, battering against the 3 ships' shields. The Enterprise shuddered under the assault, the Klothos's hull groaned with stress, and the Blue Noah's structural integrity fields flared bright with absorbed energy. 5 seconds. 4. 3. 2. 1. Cease fire. All vessels, cease fire immediately. The 3 beams cut off in perfect synchronization. For a breathless moment, the universe seemed to hold still. The rift pulsed once, twice, its edges flickering with residual energy. Then, with a flash of light that momentarily overloaded every sensor on all 3 ships, it collapsed completely, reality sealing itself with a sound like thunder heard from underwater. Silence fell across 3 bridges. On the Enterprise, Spock's sensors swept the region where the rift had existed. "Captain, the dimensional tear has been successfully sealed. I am detecting no residual quantum instability. The operation was successful." Kirk exhaled slowly, feeling tension drain from his shoulders. "Mr. Spock, that might be the most beautiful sentence I've ever heard you speak. Uhura, open channels to both vessels." Kor's face appeared on screen first, his expression carrying fierce satisfaction. "Kirk. That was glorious. The Empire's scientists will study our sensor logs for decades. We punched reality itself and forced it to obey." He laughed, the sound carrying genuine joy. "Captain Hayami, your weapons performed perfectly. The Blue Noah fought alongside Klingon today and did not falter. That will be remembered." Shin's image joined the transmission, his face showing carefully controlled relief. "Commanders, my engineering team reports significant stress to our newly installed systems, but everything held. We succeeded." He paused, then added with the faintest hint of a smile, "Thank you both. My crew and I are grateful for the cooperation." Kirk allowed himself a smile. "Gentlemen, today proved that when faced with extinction, different philosophies can work together. The Federation, the Empire, and the Blue Noah, we did something unprecedented. And we did it perfectly. Do not become sentimental, Kirk, Kor warned, though his tone carried amusement. We cooperated because the alternative was death. Strategic necessity, nothing more. Though, he paused, considering his words carefully. I will admit, fighting beside warriors from another universe was an experience worthy of songs. Captain Hayami, if you ever tire of Federation diplomacy, the Empire might have use for a commander with your capabilities. Before Shin could respond, sensors on all three ships began screaming urgent warnings simultaneously. On the Enterprise, Spock's head snapped up from his science station, his eyebrows climbing toward his hairline in the most extreme expression of surprise Kirk had ever witnessed. Captain. New contacts emerging at the location where the rift existed. Multiple vessels, unknown configuration. There. Captain, they're coming through from the other side. The rift may have sealed on our end, but it appears to remain open in Captain Hayami's universe. And something is using it to cross through. On the view screen, space itself rippled. 3 vessels materialized, sleek, predatory designs that radiated hostile intent. Their hulls were dark organic curves studded with weapon emplacements, and their energy signatures pulsed with malevolent purpose. Shin's face went rigid with recognition. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 5 years of warfare. Those are Gotham Empire warships. Hunter-class destroyers, designed for hit-and-run strikes against planetary defenses. His hands gripped his command chair hard enough that his knuckles went white. They followed us through. The war just arrived in your universe. Kor leaned forward, eyes gleaming with new interest. Gotham Empire? These are your enemies, Captain Hayami? Yes. And they've just declared war on everything in sensor range. All ships, raise shields and prepare for combat. The Gotham don't negotiate. They conquer or they destroy. Nothing in between. The 3 Gotham destroyers completed their dimensional transition and immediately began scanning their new environment. On the lead vessel, Commander Zarn of the Gotham Imperial Fleet studied the sensor displays with cold satisfaction. 3 ships, 2 unknown classes and 1 very familiar signature. The Blue Noah, Zarn hissed through serrated teeth. The human superweapon. We've been hunting this vessel for months, and it led us to an entirely new hunting ground. He turned to his tactical officer. Analysis of the other vessels. Unknown technologies, Commander. 1 vessel shows energy signatures consistent with controlled matter-antimatter reactions. The other utilizes what appears to be plasma-based weapons systems. Both are smaller than the Blue Noah but demonstrate significant power generation capability. Then they are potential threats. Standard doctrine applies. Zarn's clawed hand tapped a command sequence. All ships, weapons charged and targeting solutions locked. We will destroy the Blue Noah first, then these unknown vessels. The Gotham Empire claims this dimension in the name of conquest. The 3 Gotham destroyers began moving into attack formation, their weapons ports opening to reveal arrays of particle cannons and missile tubes. On the Blue Noah's bridge, alarms shrieked. Tokugawa's voice cut through the chaos with urgent precision. Captain, they're charging weapons. All 3 vessels are targeting us specifically. Multiple missile locks detected. Shin's mind raced through tactical calculations. His weapons capacitors were at 15% from the rift sealing operation. Shields were functional but the ship's systems were stressed from repairs and modifications. They were in no condition for combat against 3 fresh Gotham destroyers. But the Earth Defense Force had learned to fight while wounded, outnumbered, and desperate. It was practically their default operating condition. All hands, battle stations. Helm, evasive pattern Omega. Tokugawa, target the lead destroyer's weapon systems. If we can disable their primary cannons, we buy time. He opened channels to both Kirk and Kor. The Gotham will fire within seconds. I know our alliance was only for the rift, but if you value your civilization's survival, we need to destroy these vessels before they call for reinforcements. The Gotham Empire doesn't send scouts alone, these are advance units for a larger invasion force. Kirk's response was immediate. Enterprise to battle stations. Mr. Sulu, attack pattern Kirk Epsilon. Phasers and photon torpedoes, target the destroyer closest to our position. He looked directly at the view screen. Captain Hayami, we didn't close one-dimensional threat just to allow another to establish a beachhead. The Federation stands with you. Kor's laugh was sharp and fierce. Finally. Diplomacy and science are tedious work. Battle, now that is what Klingon excel at. His orders rang across the Klothos's bridge. All power to weapons and forward shields. Target the largest Gotham vessel. Let's see if these interdimensional conquerors can match the Empire's fury. The 3 Gotham destroyers opened fire simultaneously, streams of particle cannon energy and volleys of advanced missiles streaking toward the blue Noah. The massive carrier rolled hard to port, its shields flaring brilliant azure as impacts cascaded across defensive barriers. The battle for 2 universes had begun. The blue Noah's shields blazed under the Gotham assault, energy cascading across the defensive barriers in brilliant patterns. On the bridge, damage reports flooded in as the carrier shuddered under sustained fire. Shields holding at 62%, Commander Yamato called out. But Captain, we can't sustain this bombardment for long. Our weapons capacitors are still recharging from the rift operation. Shin's tactical mind processed the battlefield with cold precision. 3 Gotham destroyers in standard hunter formation, the lead vessel drawing fire while the flanking ships maneuvered for killing angles. It was textbook Gotham doctrine, and the Earth Defense Force had countered it 100 times. Tokugawa, ignore the lead ship. Target the starboard flankers' propulsion systems. If we can cripple their maneuverability, we break their formation integrity. The tactical officer's hands flew across his console. Aye, sir. Firing solution locked. The blue Noah's pulse disruptors hammered into the flanking Gotham destroyer, concentrating fire on its drive sections. The alien vessel's shields absorbed the first impacts, but sustained fire began overwhelming its defenses. Energy bleed through scorched hull plating, and one of the destroyer's engine pods erupted in a shower of debris. On the Enterprise, Kirk watched the blue Noah's tactical display with appreciation. Spock, analysis of Hayami's combat style. The Vulcan studied sensor readings with characteristic precision. Captain, the blue Noah's commander is demonstrating sophisticated tactical awareness. Rather than engaging in direct firepower exchange, he is targeting mobility systems to create strategic advantage. It is highly efficient. Mr. Sulu, coordinate with the blue Noah. Support their attack pattern on that damaged destroyer. Let's finish what they started. The Enterprise banked hard, bringing its phaser arrays to bear. Twin beams lanced across space, striking the wounded Gotham vessel precisely where the blue Noah's fire had weakened its shields. The destroyer's defenses collapsed completely, and phaser energy carved through hull plating like a blade through paper. Secondary explosions rippled along the alien ship's spine before its power core detonated in a brilliant flash. On the Klothos, Kor roared approval as he witnessed the combined assault. Excellent. Kirk and Hayami fight like wolves taking down prey, coordinated, ruthless, efficient. Now let us show them how Klingon wage war. He jabbed a clawed finger toward the view screen. Full power to forward disruptors. Ram that lead vessel's shields down their throats. The Klingon battle cruiser accelerated directly toward the lead Gotham destroyer, disruptor banks firing in continuous volleys. It was an aggressive, almost reckless approach, pure Klingon combat philosophy of overwhelming force applied at close range. The Gotham commander, caught off guard by such direct aggression, attempted to angle away. But Kor had anticipated the evasive maneuver. Now. Photon torpedoes, full spread. 6 torpedoes erupted from the Klothos's forward tubes, streaking toward the Gotham vessel at point-blank range. 3 were intercepted by defensive fire, but the remaining 3 struck home. The combined impact of torpedoes and sustained disruptor fire crushed the destroyer's forward shields completely. On the Gotham lead vessel, Commander Zarn watched his tactical situation deteriorate with cold fury. One destroyer destroyed, his own shields compromised, and the third destroyer now isolated against 3 hostile vessels. The humans' allies fought with unexpected coordination and capability. Status of dimensional rift stability, he demanded. His science officer worked frantically at sensor displays. Commander, the rift appears sealed on this side, but our sensors detect residual quantum fluctuations. We could potentially force it open again with sufficient energy discharge, but it would require. Do it. Signal the third destroyer to provide covering fire while we execute emergency dimensional transit protocol. We'll return to Fleet Command with intelligence about this new theater of operations. The third Gotham destroyer, recognizing the tactical situation had collapsed, moved to shield the damaged lead vessel. Its weapons systems opened up with desperate ferocity, targeting all 3 allied ships simultaneously in an attempt to create enough chaos for its commander to escape. Shin saw the maneuver immediately. They're trying to retreat back through the rift. Tokugawa, target that lead destroyer's dimensional drive signatures. We can't let them report back to their fleet. But the Enterprise was closer. Kirk's command cut through the tactical chatter. Mr. Sulu, attack pattern Kirk Omega-3. Put us between that Gotham ship and the rift coordinates. Spock, can we block their dimensional transit? Theoretically, Captain. If we emit a broad-spectrum tachyon field at the rift coordinates, it should destabilize any attempt to force the barrier open. However, generating such a field will require diverting power from weapons and shields. Do it. We didn't seal that rift just to let an invasion force use it as a highway. The Enterprise positioned itself directly between the retreating Gotham vessel and the sealed rift coordinates. Its deflector dish began emitting cascading waves of tachyon particles, creating a shimmering barrier in space. The Gotham commander's reptilian features twisted with rage. The unknown vessel is attempting to block our transit. All weapons, destroy it. Every remaining weapon system on the lead destroyer opened fire on the Enterprise. Particle beams and missiles converged on the Federation starship in concentrated fury. Kirk's ship shuddered violently, shields flaring bright before collapsing to critical levels. Shields down to 18%. Sulu called out as the bridge lights flickered. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 9. On the Blue Noah, Shin saw the Enterprise taking devastating fire while its weapons remained offline to maintain the tachyon field. The Federation ship was sacrificing itself to prevent the Gotham from escaping. It was exactly the kind of selfless tactical decision the Earth Defense Force would make, and exactly why they'd lost so many ships in the war. But this time, the Blue Noah wasn't fighting alone. Helm, emergency acceleration. Position us between the Enterprise and that Gotham destroyer. Full power to forward shields. Commander Yamato turned sharply. Captain, that will expose our damaged sections to enemy fire. Execute. The massive carrier surged forward with surprising speed, its bulk interposing between the wounded Enterprise and the Gotham vessel's weapons. Particle beams that would have torn through the Federation ship's weakened shields instead hammered into the Blue Noah's full-strength defensive barriers. Shin's voice cut through the tactical chaos with absolute authority. Tokugawa, ready the gravity torpedo. Full yield. Target that Gotham destroyer's core structure. The tactical officer's eyes widened. Sir, at this range, the gravitational effects could damage the Enterprise as well. The Enterprise's shields are down. A gravity torpedo detonation at safe distance won't hurt them. But it will definitely hurt the Gotham. Fire on my mark. On the Enterprise, Kirk watched the Blue Noah position itself as a shield, taking fire meant for his ship. Spock's voice carried unusual urgency. Captain, the Blue Noah is preparing to deploy their gravitational weapon. At current proximity, we should. I know what Captain Hayami is doing, Spock. "Mr. Sulu, move us back 2,000 meters. Give the Blue Noah room to work." The Enterprise retreated slightly, its tachyon field still active but position adjusted. On the Blue Noah, Shin watched the tactical display with absolute focus. The Gotham destroyer was committed now, all weapons blazing, unable to maneuver without exposing vulnerable sections to Klingon fire. Mark. Fire gravity torpedo. The Blue Noah's forward hull irised open, revealing the massive weapon launcher. Energy coalesced at the barrel's mouth, reality itself bending visibly as exotic physics took hold. The gravity torpedo launched with a sound like reality tearing, a contained gravitational singularity spinning at impossible velocities. The Gotham commander saw it coming and understood instantly what it was. His final transmission was a scream of defiant rage before the torpedo struck his ship amidships and detonated. Space warped. The destroyer crumpled like paper in a fist, its hull compressing as 40,000 gravities crushed it from all directions simultaneously. Metal screamed, energy containment fields failed catastrophically, and the ship imploded into a sphere roughly the size of a shuttlecraft before the torpedo's containment collapsed and released its deadly cargo in a blinding flash. When the energy cleared, the Gotham lead destroyer had ceased to exist in any recognizable form, just expanding debris and radiation. The third destroyer, witnessing its commander's destruction and recognizing the hopelessness of its position, made one final desperate attempt. It ignored all three Allied vessels and fired everything it had at the rift coordinates, attempting to force the dimensional barrier open through brute energy discharge. Kor saw the maneuver and laughed with fierce joy. Desperate and foolish. That is how warriors should die, fighting until the last moment. He turned to his weapons officer. All remaining power to disruptors. End them. The Klothos and Blue Noah fired simultaneously, their combined weapons output overwhelming the final Gotham destroyer's shields in seconds. The alien vessel's hull ruptured in multiple locations, atmosphere venting in brilliant streams before its power core went critical. 3 Gotham destroyers. 3 expanding debris fields. Silence fell across the 3 Allied bridges. On the Blue Noah, Shin slowly released his grip on the command chair's armrests, forcing his breathing to steady. 5 years of combat against Gotham forces had taught him never to celebrate victory too quickly. There was always another wave, another attack, another desperate battle. But this time, sensors showed only debris and the 3 Allied vessels. No reinforcements. No follow-up assault. Just, victory. Kirk's voice broke the silence. "Captain Hayami, that was some of the finest combat coordination I've witnessed. Thank you for shielding the Enterprise. You saved my ship and crew." Shin nodded, still processing the engagement. "You would have done the same, Captain Kirk. You proved that by positioning yourself to block their escape even when it left you vulnerable." Kor's image appeared on a shared channel, his expression carrying fierce satisfaction. "Both of you fight with honor. The Empire respects warriors who risk themselves for their allies. Today, 3 vessels from different powers fought as one force. It is unusual, but effective." Spock's voice joined the conversation, calm and analytical as always. "Captains, I must report that the Gotham vessel's attempt to force the rift open failed completely. The dimensional barrier remains sealed. However, their energy discharge did create residual quantum signatures. If anyone in their universe is monitoring the rift from the other side, they will know vessels were sent through and did not return." Shin felt cold settle in his gut. Which means the Gotham Empire now knows there's something on this side of the rift worth investigating. They'll send a larger force to investigate. "How large?" Kirk asked quietly. "Battle carriers. Dreadnoughts. Enough firepower to sterilize planetary surfaces from orbit. The Gotham don't waste time with reconnaissance failures. They escalate until they win." Shin's expression was grim. "You sealed the rift to protect your universe from dimensional instability. But in doing so, we may have trapped my crew here while simultaneously alerting the Gotham Empire that your universe exists. I'm sorry, captains. We brought war to your doorstep. Kor's response was immediate and carried no hint of regret. Do not apologize for battle, Hayami. War comes to all warriors eventually. Better to face it alongside capable allies than to be caught unprepared. If this Gotham Empire wishes to test themselves against the combined might of the Federation, the Blue Noah, and the Klingon Empire, let them come. We will teach them the price of ambition. Kirk's expression was more thoughtful, but he nodded slowly. Commander Kor is right, Captain Hayami. You didn't bring war here, circumstance did. And the Federation doesn't abandon allies when things get difficult. If the Gotham Empire wants to invade our universe, they'll find we're not easy prey. Shin wanted to believe them. But he'd watched the Gotham Empire conquer 3 colonies in his universe, had seen entire civilizations reduced to ash. These people didn't understand what was coming. Their idealism, their honor codes, their diplomatic protocols, none of it would matter when Gotham dreadnoughts arrived with planet-killing weapons. Captains, with respect, you don't know what you're facing. The Gotham Empire has been waging total war for decades. They've perfected the art of genocide. 3 destroyers were just a scouting force. What comes next will make today's battle look like a training exercise. Then we'll prepare, Kirk said firmly. And we'll do it together. Captain Hayami, I'm requesting permission to contact Starfleet Command. They need to know about this threat. The Federation has resources you haven't seen yet, entire fleets, advanced research facilities, strategic defense networks. We've faced extinction-level threats before and survived. Kor added, the Empire will also mobilize. The High Council values honor, but they value survival more. If this Gotham Empire wishes war, the Klingon military machine will show them what true warriors can accomplish. Shin looked at both commanders, Kirk with his idealistic determination, Kor with his fierce warrior pride. Neither truly understood what was coming. But they were willing to fight beside him regardless. It was more than he'd had any right to expect. Very well. Contact your commands. But captains, understand something, the Gotham Empire doesn't negotiate surrender. When they come, it will be total war. Are your civilizations prepared for that? Kirk met his gaze steadily. Captain Hayami, the Federation was founded by worlds that faced extinction and chose to stand together. We've fought Romulans, Klingon, and threats from beyond our galaxy. We're not naive about warfare, we simply prefer peace when possible. But when war is necessary, we fight to win. Kor's teeth showed in a predatory smile. And the Empire lives for glorious battle. Your Gotham Empire will learn that Klingon do not yield, do not surrender, and do not know the meaning of retreat. Let them come. On the view screen, the 3 debris fields from the Gotham destroyers continued expanding slowly, fragments tumbling through the void. Beyond them, the sealed dimensional rift remained invisible but present, a barrier between 2 universes that had proven disturbingly permeable. Shin turned to Commander Yamato. Begin full damage assessment and repair protocols. I want us at maximum combat readiness within 12 hours. And Yamato, start drilling the crew on extended combat operations. If the Gotham send a battle carrier, we'll be fighting for days, not hours. Understood, Captain. As the Blue Noah began organizing its post-battle recovery, Shin remained in his command chair, staring at the sealed rift coordinates. Somewhere on the other side, Earth was still fighting for survival against the Gotham Empire. His crew's mission was to defend humanity, and he'd failed by being trapped in the wrong universe. But perhaps he could still serve that mission. If the Gotham Empire focused resources on invading this new universe, it might relieve pressure on Earth. And if he could forge an alliance strong enough to defeat the Gotham here, maybe, just maybe, he could find a way to take that alliance home. It was a slim hope. But hope, however slim, was what kept soldiers fighting when logic said surrender. The war had followed them across dimensions. Now it would be fought on two fronts, in two realities, by allies who barely knew each other. Shin allowed himself one moment of quiet determination. Then he began preparing for the battles ahead. 72 hours after the battle, the Blue Noah hung in orbit around Starbase 12, surrounded by a defensive perimeter of 6 Constitution-class starships. The Federation had mobilized with impressive speed once Kirk delivered his report. Now, the massive space station's conference room hosted an emergency strategic session that would determine how two universes prepared for war. Captain Shin stood before a holographic display showing both the dimensional rift coordinates and tactical projections of potential Gotham invasion routes. Around the conference table sat representatives from Starfleet Command, Klingon High Council observers, and his own senior staff. The room hummed with tension as military minds grappled with an unprecedented threat. Admiral Comac, a stern-faced Starfleet veteran with iron-gray hair, studied the tactical data with obvious concern. Captain Hayami, you've given us detailed specifications on Gotham Empire combat capabilities. Your assessment is that 3 destroyers represent less than 0.01% of their total military strength? Correct, Admiral. The Gotham Empire maintains approximately 40 battle carriers, each capable of deploying 200 fighter craft and carrying enough firepower to reduce a planet's surface to molten slag within hours. They also possess 12 Dreadnought-class vessels that serve as mobile command bases. In our universe, humanity's survival depends on the Blue Noah being able to engage and destroy isolated task forces before they can coordinate into fleet actions. A Vulcan science officer named Spring spoke with characteristic precision. Captain, your tactical records indicate the Gotham Empire operates on a doctrine of overwhelming force and total annihilation. They do not appear to value resource acquisition or cultural assimilation. This suggests a species-wide psychological orientation toward conquest as an end unto itself rather than a means to other objectives. Shin nodded. That's accurate. The Gotham don't want our resources or territory. They want the validation of conquest. Every civilization they encounter is measured only by how difficult it is to destroy. It's fundamentally incompatible with diplomatic resolution. Kirk, seated beside Admiral Comac, leaned forward. Which means we can't negotiate. We can only fight or flee. And fleeing means abandoning the Alpha Quadrant to invasion. Unacceptable, growled Ambassador Kell, the Klingon High Council's representative. He was a scarred warrior whose presence carried the weight of decades of combat experience. The Empire does not abandon territory. If this Gotham force emerges through the dimensional barrier, they will face the full might of the Klingon defense force. Let them test themselves against warriors who have conquered 100 worlds. Admiral Comac's expression remained skeptical. Ambassador Kell, Captain Hayami's records show the Gotham Empire destroyed 3 separate spacefaring civilizations in his universe over the past decade. Each of those civilizations possessed technology comparable to ours. Overconfidence will get us killed. Then we will die gloriously. Kell's fist struck the table. But we will not flee like cowards from an enemy we have not yet faced. Shin intervened before the argument could escalate. Admiral, Ambassador, you're both correct. The Gotham are deadly, but they're not invincible. The Blue Noah has destroyed dozens of their vessels. The key is understanding their tactical doctrine and exploiting its weaknesses. He manipulated the holographic display, calling up engagement records from battles in his universe. Gotham forces rely on numerical superiority and concentrated firepower. They're aggressive, sometimes to the point of tactical recklessness. But they're also adaptive. If you use the same strategy twice, they'll have developed a counter by the third engagement. Commander Spock, attending the briefing as Kirk's science officer, studied the data with intense focus. Captain Hayami, I notice a pattern in your engagement records. The Gotham Empire appears to target civilian population centers preferentially over military installations. This suggests psychological warfare is a component of their strategy. It's their primary strategy, Shin confirmed grimly. The Gotham want populations terrified into submission before ground forces even arrive. They bombard cities, massacre civilians, and broadcast the atrocities across all communication channels. It's designed to break morale and eliminate resistance before conventional military conflict even begins. Silence fell across the conference room as the Federation officers absorbed that information. The Vulcans remained impassive, but several humans exchanged disturbed glances. Kirk's jaw tightened visibly. Admiral Comac spoke carefully. "Captain, the Federation has protocols against targeting civilian populations. It's one of our most fundamental principles. Are you suggesting that Gotham will ignore any such conventions?" "Admiral, the Gotham Empire doesn't recognize the concept of civilians. In their worldview, every member of an enemy species is a legitimate target. Combatant, non-combatant, the distinction is meaningless to them. When they invade, they will target your cities, your colonies, your infrastructure. And they will document every massacre because terror is a weapon." Ambassador Kell's expression shifted from bravado to cold calculation. "Then honor demands we show them no mercy in return. If they wish total war, the Empire will oblige them with prejudice." "Gentlemen," Spring interjected logically, "before we debate rules of engagement for a war that has not yet materialized, we should address the more immediate question: can the dimensional rift be permanently sealed from this side to prevent Gotham incursion entirely?" All eyes turned to Spock. The Vulcan science officer called up quantum mechanics displays, his fingers moving across the holographic controls with practiced precision. "I have been analyzing residual quantum signatures from the rift and the Gotham vessel's dimensional transit. My findings are concerning. The rift is not truly sealed, it is compressed to subatomic scale. With sufficient energy discharge from either side, it could be forced open again. The Gotham vessel's final attack demonstrated this vulnerability. However, permanently sealing the rift would require technology we do not currently possess." Kirk asked the question everyone was thinking. "How long before the Gotham try to force it open with a larger fleet?" Shin answered based on bitter experience. "Days, perhaps a week. The Gotham command structure operates on rapid response doctrine. 3 destroyers went through and didn't return. Protocol demands sending a battle carrier with full escort to investigate and neutralize whatever destroyed the scouting force. They're probably assembling the task force right now. Then we need defensive preparations immediately," Admiral Comac declared. "I'm authorizing mobilization of the 3rd and 7th fleets to this sector. Captain Kirk, the Enterprise will coordinate with the Blue Noah on tactical integration protocols. We need our forces able to operate in coordinated formation before the Gotham arrive." Ambassador Kell stood, his bulk imposing. "The Empire will also commit forces. I will recommend to the High Council that Commander Kor's tactical group be reinforced with 2 additional battle cruisers. If the Gotham Empire wishes to test themselves against combined Federation and Klingon might, we will accommodate them." Shin felt a surge of hope despite the grim circumstances. In his universe, humanity stood alone against the Gotham onslaught. Here, he had powerful allies with technologies and resources the Earth Defense Force could only dream of. But hope was dangerous. It made you careless, made you believe victory was possible when survival should be the only goal. "Admiral Comac," Shin said carefully, "I appreciate the Federation's commitment. But I need to be direct about something. In my universe, we've been fighting the Gotham for 5 years. We've lost millions of soldiers and civilians. We've watched colonies burn and cities fall. The Blue Noah exists because humanity learned that conventional military thinking doesn't work against an enemy that treats war as an existential imperative. If you engage the Gotham with standard Starfleet tactics, you will lose. Badly." The Admiral's expression hardened. "Then what do you recommend, Captain?" "Integration training. My crew has fought hundreds of engagements against Gotham forces. We know their patterns, their responses, their weaknesses. But we're one ship. If we can train Federation and Klingon crews in Earth Defense Force combat doctrine, you'll have a fighting chance. Otherwise, this war will be over before it begins. Spock's eyebrow rose with interest. Captain Hayami, you are proposing a comprehensive knowledge transfer operation. Training multiple crews in unfamiliar combat methodology within days rather than weeks or months. The accelerated timeframe introduces significant pedagogical challenges. Then we'll work around the clock, Shin replied. My tactical officers will embed with Federation and Klingon vessels. We'll run combat simulations until your crews can execute anti-Gotham maneuvers instinctively. It won't be perfect, but it will be better than facing them completely unprepared. Kirk nodded slowly. It makes sense. We've adapted to Romulan tactics, Klingon strategies, even Borg efficiency in certain encounters. Learning from Captain Hayami's experience could save thousands of lives. Admiral Kamak made his decision. Approved. Captain Hayami, you'll have full access to Federation training facilities and simulation equipment. Coordinate with Captain Kirk on curriculum development. Ambassador Kel, I assume the Klingon Defense Force will participate? Kel's teeth showed in a fierce smile. The Empire learns from worthy opponents. If the Blue Noah's crew can teach us to kill Gotham warriors more efficiently, we will listen. Temporarily. The briefing continued for another hour, covering logistics, defensive positioning, communication protocols, and contingency evacuation plans for nearby colonies. By the time Shin returned to the Blue Noah, exhaustion was dragging at his body. He'd been operating on minimal sleep since arriving in this universe, the stress of command compounding physical fatigue. Commander Yamato met him in the hangar bay. Captain, how did the strategic conference proceed? Better than expected. The Federation is taking the threat seriously, and the Klingon are eager to fight. We're being given resources and authority to train their crews in anti-Gotham tactics. Shin paused, considering his next words carefully. Yamato, I need you to coordinate with Lieutenant Tokugawa on developing training scenarios. Pull from every engagement we've recorded against Gotham forces. I want simulations that showcase their aggression, their adaptability, and their complete disregard for conventional rules of warfare. Understood, sir. The crew has been asking about our long-term situation. What should I tell them? Shin considered the question. His crew had been displaced from their universe, trapped in a dimension where their homeworld didn't need defending because an alternate version had never been attacked. They were warriors without a war, defenders without anything to defend. Until now. Tell them the truth. We can't go home yet. The rift is sealed, and we don't have the technology to reopen it safely. But the Gotham Empire is coming here, which means we can still serve our mission, defending humanity from extinction. Just a different humanity than we expected. Yamato's expression was troubled. Some of the crew are struggling with that, Captain. They joined the Earth Defense Force to protect their families, their homes. This universe's Earth is alien to them, even if it looks identical. The psychological burden of fighting for strangers while our loved ones face the Gotham alone. I know, Shin said quietly. Believe me, I know. I think about it every moment. But we have two choices, despair over what we can't change, or adapt to what we can influence. The Gotham are coming to this universe. If we don't stop them here, they'll establish a foothold, and eventually they'll overwhelm this dimension just like they're overwhelming ours. At least here, we have allies. That's more than we had back home. I'll convey that to the crew, sir. Over the next 3 days, the Blue Noah became the center of intensive combat training operations. Lieutenant Tokugawa embedded with the Enterprise's tactical team, running simulations that demonstrated Gotham Wolfpack attack patterns. Chief Engineer Sakata worked with Montgomery Scott to develop adaptive shield configurations that could better withstand Gotham particle cannons. Dr. Natsuko briefed Starfleet Medical on Gotham biological warfare tactics. Yes, they used disease as a weapon, and no, they didn't discriminate between military and civilian targets. Captain Kirk proved to be an exceptional student of warfare. He absorbed Earth Defense Force tactical doctrine with impressive speed, adapting it to Federation capabilities. During one particularly intense simulation, Kirk's Enterprise analog destroyed 3 virtual Gotham destroyers using maneuvers that would have been impossible with standard Starfleet tactics. "You're learning quickly," Shin observed from the simulation control room. Kirk wiped sweat from his forehead, grinning despite the intensity. "You're a good teacher, Captain. Though I have to say, your combat doctrine is exhausting. Earth Defense Force tactics seem to assume the enemy always has numerical superiority and technological parity. There's no margin for error. That's because the Gotham give you no margin. One mistake, and your ship is debris. My crew learned that lesson early and bloodily." The Klingon proved even more enthusiastic students. Commander Kor threw himself into the training with fierce joy, recognizing that Earth Defense Force tactics emphasized the aggressive close-range combat Klingon excelled at. After one simulation where Kor's virtual cruiser destroyed 5 Gotham vessels using Blue Noah-inspired maneuvers, the Klingon commander actually embraced Tokugawa in a bone-crushing hug. "Your people fight like Klingon." Kor roared with approval. "Aggressive, cunning, willing to take risks for victory. I retract my earlier assessment, the Blue Noah crew are not merely competent warriors. You are glorious." Tokugawa, struggling to breathe in Kor's embrace, managed a strained response. "Thank you, Commander. Could you possibly express your approval with slightly less physical enthusiasm?" But beneath the training intensity and growing cooperation, everyone felt the countdown. Sensors monitored the sealed rift coordinates constantly, watching for energy fluctuations that would signal another dimensional breach. Starfleet's 3rd and 7th fleets positioned themselves in defensive formations around the rift. Klingon reinforcements arrived daily, building a wall of military might that would greet any Gotham incursion. On the 6th day, sensors detected what everyone had been dreading. The dimensional barrier began fluctuating with massive energy discharges. Something on the other side was forcing it open with power that dwarfed the previous destroyer incursion. Alarms shrieked across every ship in the defensive fleet. Admiral Comack's voice cut through fleet-wide communications with grim authority. "All vessels, battle stations. This is not a drill. Sensor analysis indicates major dimensional breach in progress. Estimated time to full rift opening, 17 minutes. All ships move to assigned defensive positions and prepare for hostile contact. Repeat, this is not a drill." On the Blue Noah's bridge, Shin settled into his command chair with the calm that came from having fought this enemy countless times before. Around him, his crew moved with practiced precision, faces set with determination. "Tokugawa, weapon systems at maximum readiness. Helm, position us at Point Defense Alpha 3. Commander Yamato, signal all Allied vessels, Earth Defense Force combat protocols are now active. Execute Pattern Omega on my mark." The fleet repositioned into formation patterns that would have been unfamiliar a week ago but now represented coordinated anti-Gotham doctrine. The Enterprise and 3 Constitution-class vessels formed the outer perimeter. Klingon battle cruisers anchored the center, their heavy firepower ready to engage at close range. And the Blue Noah held position as the formation's anchor, the one ship in the fleet with proven capability against whatever was coming through. The dimensional rift tore open with a sound like reality screaming. Energy cascaded across space as the barrier between universes was forced aside through overwhelming power. And through that wound in existence, the Gotham Empire's answer to 3 destroyed destroyers emerged. A battle carrier. It was massive, over 2 kilometers of dark organic hull studded with weapon emplacements, launch bays, and sensor arrays that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. Fighter craft began deploying immediately, streaming from its bays like angry insects. Behind the carrier, 3 heavy cruisers materialized, their weapons already charging. And on every ship in the defensive fleet, crews realized that everything they trained for was about to be tested against an enemy that had perfected the art of extinction. The battle for the rift had begun. The Gotham battle carrier dominated the view screen like a predator materializing from nightmare. Its hull was a twisted fusion of biological and technological horror, dark chitinous plating interwoven with pulsing energy conduits that glowed sickly green. Weapons ports opened along its flanks like infected wounds, and the fighter craft pouring from its launch bays moved with insectoid coordination. On the Enterprise bridge, Spock's readings painted a grim picture. Captain, the carrier's mass is approximately 4.7 million metric tons. I am detecting power signatures consistent with multiple matter-antimatter reactors operating at 93% capacity. Fighter deployment rate, 6 craft per second. Current count, 147 and rising. The 3 escort cruisers are positioning themselves in defensive screen formation. Kirk's jaw tightened. Training simulations were one thing. This was different, visceral, immediate, and carrying the weight of billions of lives depending on the defensive fleet holding the line. Mr. Sulu, attack pattern Hayami Delta 7. Coordinate with the Blue Noah on targeting priorities. Uhura, open fleet-wide channel. Channel open, sir. All vessels, this is Captain Kirk. Execute defensive pattern Omega. Primary targets are those fighters. We cannot allow them to break through and threaten the colonies behind us. Secondary targets are the escort cruisers. The battle carrier is the Blue Noah's priority. Remember your training. We've prepared for this. Now we prove we can win. Kirk out. On the Blue Noah, Shin watched the tactical display with the cold focus of a commander who had fought this enemy too many times to count. The fighter deployment was standard Gotham doctrine: overwhelm point defenses with numbers, then exploit gaps for cruiser strikes while the carrier provided fire support from range. Tokugawa, deploy counterfighter pattern 3. I want our point defense systems prioritizing fighters that break formation. They're most dangerous when they coordinate. Helm, angle us 30 degrees port. Give the gravity torpedo a clear firing solution on that lead cruiser. Commander Yamato moved beside Shin's chair, voice low. Captain, the battle carrier hasn't opened fire yet. They're holding back. They're evaluating us. Standard Gotham protocol: let the expendable forces probe our capabilities while the capital ship analyzes our response patterns. Once they understand our tactics, the carrier will commit fully. Shin's eyes tracked the fighter swarm. Which means we have maybe 3 minutes to hurt them badly enough that their analysis becomes irrelevant. The Klingon vessels struck first, their aggressive nature perfectly suited for the chaos of fighter combat. Commander Kor's Klothos dove directly into the fighter swarm, disruptors blazing in continuous fire. Gotham fighters evaporated under the assault, but more kept coming, waves of them, each pilot willing to die if it meant landing a single hit on the Klingon hull. Glorious! Kor roared as his ship shuddered under multiple impacts. They die with courage if not honor. All power to forward shields and weapons. We'll burn them from the stars. 2 more Klingon cruisers joined the assault, creating a devastating crossfire that carved through the fighter formation. But the Gotham adapted quickly. Fighter groups began coordinating attack runs, hitting Klingon shields from multiple angles simultaneously. One cruiser's shields collapsed under concentrated fire, and Gotham fighters swarmed it like piranha, their weapons tearing through armor plating. Klingon vessel Kronos is reporting critical damage, Uhura called out on the Enterprise. They're losing atmosphere on multiple decks. Kirk made his decision instantly. Mr. Sulu, attack pattern Kirk Epsilon 3. Get us to the Kronos. Phasers, continuous fire into that fighter concentration. Clear them off that cruiser. The Enterprise banked hard, its phaser arrays lighting up space with sustained beams that swept through Gotham fighters like a scythe through wheat. The precision targeting was textbook Starfleet. Each phaser strike eliminated a fighter without wasted energy. Within 20 seconds, the Enterprise had destroyed 43 fighters and created enough breathing room for the Kronos to restore emergency shields. But the Gotham escort cruisers were moving now, their massive hulls accelerating toward the Federation line. Their weapons systems opened up with devastating effect, particle beams that could punch through shields and sustained fire, missile volleys that forced defensive systems to engage multiple threats simultaneously. The Constitution-class USS Lexington took 3 direct hits, its shields flaring bright before collapsing. The 4th hit carved through its saucer section, venting atmosphere and bodies into space. The ship began listing as emergency systems struggled to maintain structural integrity. On the Blue Noah, Shin saw the Lexington's distress and recognized the Gotham were executing textbook doctrine, cripple support vessels to create gaps in the defensive line, then exploit those gaps for breakthrough strikes. He'd seen it 100 times. He'd lost ships to it 100 times. Not today. Tokugawa, fire the gravity torpedo. Target the lead escort cruiser. Maximum yield. The Blue Noah's forward hull opened, energy coalescing as reality bent around the weapon's muzzle. The gravity torpedo launched with that distinctive reality-tearing sound, spinning across space toward its target. The Gotham cruiser's commander saw it coming and attempted evasive maneuvers. But gravity torpedoes didn't miss. They warped space itself, dragging targets toward their detonation point through gravitational manipulation. The torpedo struck the cruiser amidships and detonated. 40,000 gravities manifested in concentrated fury. The Gotham cruiser crumpled like aluminum foil, its hull compressing from 500 meters to roughly 30 meters in diameter before the torpedo's containment failed and released its cargo. The explosion sent shockwaves rippling through space, damaging nearby fighters and forcing the other Gotham vessels to adjust their approach. But the Gotham battle carrier had seen enough. Its analysis was complete. Every weapon system on the massive carrier opened fire simultaneously. Particle beams, missile volleys, plasma projectors, and weapons that defied classification erupted in coordinated fury. The targeting was precise and devastating. The carrier wasn't firing randomly. It was executing a calculated strike designed to shatter the defensive formation's cohesion. 3 Federation ships took direct hits. The USS Constellation's shields collapsed completely, its hull breached in 17 locations. The Enterprise shuddered under sustained fire, shields dropping to 42%. Klingon vessels fared slightly better due to their heavier armor, but even their superior construction groaned under the assault. And through the chaos, Gotham fighters continued their relentless attack, exploiting every gap, every moment of distraction. Shin watched the battle develop with sick familiarity. This was how the Gotham won: overwhelming firepower, numerical superiority, and absolute willingness to accept casualties if it meant victory. The defensive fleet was holding for now, but the mathematics were brutal. The Gotham could afford losses. The defenders could not. Yamato, signal all vessels. Execute fallback pattern Delta. We need to consolidate the formation before they break through completely. But before the order could be transmitted, sensors detected something new. The dimensional rift, which had remained stable since the Gotham fleet emerged, began fluctuating again. Energy readings spiked to levels that made previous breaches look minimal. Spock's voice carried unusual urgency across fleet communications. All vessels, sensors detect massive energy discharge from the dimensional rift. Something else is attempting to cross through. Based on power signatures, it is significantly larger than the battle carrier. Shin felt ice settle in his stomach. Larger than a battle carrier? That meant only one possibility. It's a dreadnought, he said quietly. The Gotham are committing a dreadnought-class vessel. If that comes through, we're finished. Kirk's face appeared on the tactical channel, his expression grim but determined. Captain Hayami, options. Shin's mind raced through tactical calculations. A Gotham dreadnought carried enough firepower to destroy entire planetary defense networks. It was essentially a mobile fortress, designed to break stalemates through overwhelming force. If it materialized and joined this battle, no amount of courage or tactical brilliance would matter. We have one option, Captain Kirk. Someone has to close that rift before the dreadnought completes its dimensional transit. Force it back while it's still vulnerable mid-crossing. How? Spock's tachyon field couldn't stop the battle carrier. Because the carrier forced the rift open from the other side. But if we generate enough inverse polarity energy from this side while a vessel is mid-transit, we could theoretically create a dimensional backlash. Slam the door on them while they're halfway through. Spock's voice joined the conversation. Captain Hayami is correct. However, the energy requirements would be substantial. The Enterprise alone cannot generate sufficient output. We would need multiple vessels coordinating simultaneous emission at the rift coordinates. And whoever attempts this will be vulnerable during the emission cycle, unable to maneuver or defend themselves while power is diverted to the dimensional collapse field. Shin knew what that meant. Someone had to sacrifice themselves. Hold position while defenseless, trusting that other ships could protect them long enough to complete the emission sequence. And if the Gotham focused fire on that vessel, it would be destroyed. Commander Kor's voice cut through the tactical channel, carrying fierce determination. Then the Klothos will do it. Klingon do not fear death, and this is a worthy cause. We will hold position and emit the required energy field. You will protect us while we work, yes. Kirk's response was immediate. Commander Kor, will defend you with everything we have. But we need more than one ship for this to work. Then I'll commit the Blue Noah, Shin said, the decision crystallizing even as he spoke it. We have the power generation capacity to sustain dimensional collapse fields. Combined with the Klothos, we should have sufficient output. Captain, Yamato protested quietly, that means we'll be completely vulnerable while the Gotham battle carrier is still operational. They'll target us specifically. I know. Which means the Enterprise and the remaining fleet vessels need to keep that carrier busy. Very busy. Shin opened a channel to Kirk. Captain, can you do that? Give us 60 seconds of breathing room. Kirk's smile carried no humor, only determination. Captain Hayami, the Enterprise has faced impossible odds before. We'll give you your 60 seconds. Just make them count. All vessels, this is Admiral Comac, the fleet commander's voice cut through the chaos. Execute defensive pattern Charlie 9. All Constitution-class vessels, concentrate fire on the Gotham battle carrier. Klingon wings, screen the Blue Noah and Klothos during emission sequence. This is our line. We hold it here or we don't hold it at all. Comac out. The fleet repositioned with desperate speed. The Enterprise, joined by the Lexington and two other Constitution-class ships, accelerated directly toward the massive Gotham carrier. It was a suicidal approach, closing to point-blank range with a vessel that outmassed them 5-1 and carried exponentially more firepower. But it was also tactically sound. The carrier's weapons were optimized for long-range bombardment. At close range, its targeting systems would have difficulty tracking smaller, more agile vessels. It was classic Kirk doctrine, turn your enemy's strength into weakness through aggressive positioning. The Enterprise opened fire at 2,000 meters, phasers and photon torpedoes hammering into the carrier's shields at near-contact range. The Gotham vessel's defenses flared brilliant green, absorbing the punishment but preventing the carrier from targeting the Blue Noah and Klothos as they positioned themselves at the rift coordinates. On the Blue Noah, Shin watched his tactical display as friendly vessels threw themselves into the carrier's firing arcs, deliberately drawing aggression away from his ship. It was the most selfless tactical maneuver he'd witnessed in 5 years of warfare, ships accepting certain destruction to give him 60 seconds. All power to dimensional collapse field generators, he ordered. Sakata, I need maximum output. Burn through our reserves if necessary, but don't let that field collapse before we slam that rift shut. Understood, Captain. Diverting all non-essential systems. We'll be blind, deaf, and defenseless, but you'll have your power. On the Klothos, Kor issued similar orders. His ship's disruptor arrays, normally used for destruction, were reconfigured to emit the precise inverse polarity frequencies required to force dimensional barriers closed. It was antithetical to everything Klingon engineering emphasized: weapons designed to build rather than destroy, power diverted from shields to science. "This is not how I imagine dying," Kor muttered, then laughed. "But there is honor in it. Begin emission sequence." Both ships, the Blue Noah and Klothos, began projecting coordinated energy fields toward the dimensional rift. Invisible to the naked eye but blazing on sensor displays, the fields interacted with the rift's quantum signature, creating interference patterns that disrupted the stable wormhole. At the rift coordinates, space screamed. The Gotham dreadnought, still mid-transit, found itself caught between dimensions as the barrier it was forcing open began collapsing around it. Metal groaned with stress that violated physics. The dreadnought's bow had emerged into normal space, but its aft sections remained trapped in dimensional limbo. And the Gotham battle carrier, recognizing what was happening, turned all its fury on the two vessels threatening to trap its reinforcement. "Captain!" Tokugawa's voice cracked with urgency. "The carrier is targeting us. Multiple weapon locks." Shin kept his voice steady despite knowing what was coming. "Hold position. Maintain emission field. Do not deviate." The Gotham carrier fired. Particle beams, missiles, plasma bolts, everything it had, concentrated on the defenseless Blue Noah. The first impact struck where shields should have been and found only hull plating. Armor designed to withstand tremendous punishment began failing under sustained bombardment. Explosions rippled along the Blue Noah's flanks. Sections decompressed, venting atmosphere and crew into space. Damage reports flooded in: hull breaches on decks 4 through 9, weapons systems offline, structural integrity at 60% and falling. But Shin didn't order retreat. The emission field held steady. On the Enterprise, Kirk watched the Blue Noah absorbing devastating fire and made his choice. "Mr. Sulu, emergency acceleration. Put us between the carrier and the Blue Noah. All power to aft shields." "Captain, that will expose us to direct fire at point-blank range." "Do it." The Enterprise surged forward, positioning its bulk between the Gotham carrier and its target. The carrier's weapons, unable to adjust targeting quickly enough, struck the Enterprise instead. Kirk's ship shuddered violently as shields collapsed and weapons fire carved through the saucer section. Hull breaches on deck 6, 7, and 8. Sulu called out. "Shields down to 12%. Hold position," Kirk ordered through gritted teeth as his ship died around him. "Don't let them get another clean shot at the Blue Noah." 45 seconds. The emission field continued, forcing the dimensional rift to collapse around the trapped dreadnought. The massive Gotham vessel's hull began tearing, forward sections in normal space trying to move while aft sections remained dimensionally locked. It was being pulled apart by competing realities. The dreadnought's commander, recognizing the trap, made a desperate decision. He fired his ship's self-destruct, preferring annihilation to capture or slow death. The explosion was catastrophic: antimatter detonation caught between dimensions, the energy propagating through both realities simultaneously. The shockwave hit every ship in range. The Enterprise, already critically damaged, was thrown aside like a toy. The Gotham carrier took the blast directly, its shields collapsing as the dreadnought it had been supporting destroyed itself. Klingon vessels tumbled in the expanding energy wave, their sturdy construction saving them from complete destruction but leaving them battered. And at the rift coordinates, the dimensional barrier collapsed completely. The explosion had provided exactly the energy spike needed to seal the tear permanently. Spacetime knitted itself closed with finality, leaving only radiation and debris where the wormhole had existed. 60 seconds. Shin counted them as the Blue Noah's systems failed around him. 60 seconds of holding position while his ship was dismantled by enemy fire. 60 seconds of trusting that Kirk's sacrifice would be enough. The emission field completed its cycle and shut down. The Blue Noah's emergency power kicked in, restoring minimal systems. Through static-filled view screens, Shin saw the aftermath. The dimensional rift was gone. sealed permanently by the dreadnought's self-destruction and the coordinated emission fields. No more Gotham reinforcements would cross through. The invasion had been stopped. But the cost. The Enterprise drifted, massive hull breaches venting plasma and atmosphere. The Lexington had been torn apart completely, debris spreading across thousands of kilometers. 3 Klingon cruisers floated dead in space. The Blue Noah itself was barely functional, held together by emergency structural fields and the crew's desperate will. And the Gotham battle carrier, damaged but still operational, began realigning its weapons for a final strike. It couldn't call for reinforcements now, but it could still complete its mission, destroy the Blue Noah and as many Allied vessels as possible before being overwhelmed. Shin pulled himself upright in his damaged command chair, blood running from a gash on his forehead. His ship was dying. The fleet was shattered. But they'd stopped the invasion. Now they just had to survive the victory. The Gotham battle carrier rotated its massive bulk, weapons ports glowing with building energy as it prepared to deliver killing strikes to the crippled defenders. On its bridge, Fleet Commander Zarkon studied the tactical situation with cold satisfaction despite the setbacks. The dreadnought was lost, the dimensional rift sealed, but the mission could still be salvaged. Destroy these vessels, analyze their technology from the wreckage, and the Gotham Empire would eventually find another way through. Target the human supercarrier, Zarkon ordered, gesturing toward the battered Blue Noah. Maximum firepower. I want that vessel reduced to component atoms. But as the carrier's weapons locked on, something unexpected appeared on sensors. A new contact, moving at impossible velocity from the direction of the outer system. Then another. Then 6 more. On the Blue Noah's flickering viewscreen, Shin watched the contacts resolve into warships, sleek, powerful vessels moving in perfect formation. Constitution-class star ships, fresh and undamaged, their shields at full strength and weapons hot. Captain, Yuki called out weakly from her damaged communications station, receiving transmission from the lead vessel. It's the USS Hood, Captain Christopher commanding. He says the Fourth Fleet has arrived. Shin felt something break inside him, not despair, but the tension that had held him rigid through 5 years of losing battles. Reinforcements. They had reinforcements. On the Gotham carrier, Zarkon watched his tactical situation transform from victory to catastrophe. 9 fresh starships against his damaged vessel, with the remains of the defensive fleet still capable of firing. The mathematics were suddenly impossible. Evasive maneuvers, he snarled. All remaining fighters, screen our withdrawal. We're leaving this dimension. But Commander Kor, watching from the barely functional Klothos, saw the carrier's attempted retreat and laughed through bloodied teeth. No. No, you will not escape. Not after this battle. Not after killing so many warriors. He turned to his weapons officer. Do we have power for one more torpedo spread? Yes, Commander, but our targeting systems are offline. Then we'll fire manually. Calculate intercept trajectory for that carrier's engine section. Load all remaining photon torpedoes. On the Enterprise, Kirk pulled himself from beneath a collapsed beam, his uniform torn and burned. Around him, his bridge crew worked with desperate efficiency to restore critical systems. Spock, his uniform also damaged but his composure intact, reported from the science station running on backup power. Captain, the Gotham carrier is attempting to retreat toward the outer system. At their current velocity, they will escape engagement range in 4.3 minutes. Kirk wiped blood from his eyes and surveyed his ruined bridge. His ship was dying, his crew wounded, but letting that carrier escape meant the Gotham would return with greater force. They'd analyze what happened here, develop counters, and the next battle would be even more costly. Scotty, Kirk called into the intercom, I need warp power. Even if it's just for 30 seconds. The chief engineer's voice came back, strained and exhausted. Captain, the warp core is barely stable. If I push it now, we might get one burst of speed before the whole thing goes critical. One burst is all I need. On my mark. Kirk turned to Sulu, who was nursing a broken arm but still at his station. Mr. Sulu, plot intercept course for that carrier. Attack pattern Kirk Omega Final. We're going to ram our photon torpedoes down their throat at point-blank range. Spock's eyebrow rose. Captain, at close range, our own torpedo detonations will likely destroy the Enterprise. I know. But if we don't stop that carrier here, it escapes to fight another day. How many more ships will die in the next battle, Spock? How many more colonies will burn? The Vulcan was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. Logical. I will configure torpedoes for maximum yield. But before Kirk could give the order, the Fourth Fleet's vessels opened fire. 9 Constitution-class starships, their weapons systems coordinated through advanced tactical networks, unleashed concentrated phaser and torpedo barrages. The Gotham carrier's damaged shields couldn't absorb the assault, they collapsed completely within seconds. The Hood's Captain Christopher's voice came through fleet communications. All vessels, concentrate fire on the carrier's command deck. Let's end this. Simultaneously, the Klothos fired its manually aimed photon torpedoes. Without functioning targeting computers, the spread should have missed by kilometers. But Kor had calculated the trajectory himself, using decades of combat experience and warrior's instinct. 4 of the 6 torpedoes struck the carrier's engine section, their combined detonation overwhelming the already stressed propulsion systems. The Gotham battle carrier's engines exploded in a cascading failure that rippled through its massive hull. Secondary explosions tore through its interior, venting atmosphere and debris. The massive vessel began breaking apart, its structural integrity compromised beyond recovery. On the carrier's bridge, Zarkon watched his ship die around him and made his final transmission, not a surrender, but a curse screamed toward the Blue Noah. You have won nothing, humans. The Gotham Empire is eternal. We will return, and we will burn your worlds too. The transmission cut off as the carrier's command deck decompressed. Moments later, the entire vessel detonated in a brilliant flash, taking the last of its fighter complement with it. Silence fell across the battlefield. Debris drifted in expanding clouds. Damaged ships listed in space, their crews working frantically to save what they could. And through the settling chaos, the dimensional rift's coordinates showed nothing but empty space, the barrier between universes permanently sealed. Captain Shin sat in his command chair aboard the shattered Blue Noah, barely able to process that they'd survived. Around him, his bridge crew slowly began acknowledging the reality. Commander Yamato, bleeding from a head wound but still functional, managed a weak smile. Captain, did we just win? Shin looked at the tactical display showing Allied casualties, then at the sealed rift coordinates, then at the expanding debris field that had been the Gotham invasion force. Yes, he said quietly. I think we did. Over the next hours, the fleet regrouped and began damage assessment. The casualty reports were devastating. The Lexington destroyed with most of its crew lost, 3 Klingon cruisers crippled beyond repair, over 2,000 Starfleet and Klingon personnel killed or critically wounded. The Enterprise required complete saucer section reconstruction. The Blue Noah would need months in dry dock. But they'd held the line. Against an enemy designed to conquer through overwhelming force, they'd fought to a standstill and sealed the invasion route permanently. 2 days later, Captain Shin stood in Starbase 12's observation lounge, watching repair crews swarm over the Blue Noah's damaged hull. The massive carrier looked like it had been through a meat grinder, hull breaches, scorched armor, entire sections exposed to vacuum. But it was intact, and more importantly, its crew had survived. The door hissed open behind him. Shin turned to find Kirk entering, his arm in a sling and burn still visible on his face despite medical treatment. The Federation captain moved to stand beside him at the viewport. Hell of a battle, Kirk said simply. Yes. Shin paused, searching for words. Captain Kirk, you put your ship between mine and that carrier. You took fire meant for the Blue Noah, knowing it could destroy the Enterprise. Why? Kirk considered the question thoughtfully. Because that's what allies do. You'd committed to closing the rift, which meant you couldn't defend yourself. Someone had to cover you, and I was in position to do it. He smiled slightly. Besides, you'd done the same for us earlier. Seemed only fair to return the favor. The Earth Defense Force doesn't operate on fairness, Captain. We operate on survival calculations. Your decision was tactically unsound, sacrificing a valuable asset for uncertain gain. Maybe by your calculations. But the Federation was built on the idea that some things matter more than cold tactical logic. We stand with our allies even when it's dangerous, because that's the civilization we choose to be. Shin turned that over in his mind. In his universe, such idealism had been beaten out of humanity by 5 years of total war against the Gotham. Every decision was measured against survival probability. Sacrifice was common, but it was always calculated sacrifice, trading lesser assets for greater preservation. Kirk had risked his ship not through calculation, but through principle. And somehow, impossibly, it had worked. I'm beginning to understand why the Federation has survived so long, Shin said quietly. Your principles seem like weakness, but they create loyalty that pure survival calculation can't match. Your crew would follow you into certain death, not because they've calculated it's worth it, but because they trust you'll never waste their sacrifice. It's not about waste or calculation, Kirk replied. It's about treating people like they matter, every single one of them. When you do that, when you demonstrate you value their lives as much as your own, they'll accomplish things you never thought possible. He gestured toward the Blue Noah. Your crew did that too, Captain. They held position while your ship was torn apart, trusting you had a reason worth dying for. That's not survival calculation. That's loyalty born from respect. Before Shin could respond, Commander Kor entered the observation lounge, his movements still stiff from injuries but his presence as forceful as ever. Ah, the two heroes of the Battle of the Rift. I've been searching for you both. The High Council has sent a message. Kirk raised an eyebrow. Good news or bad news? For Klingon, it is excellent news. The High Council was so impressed by our victory, and particularly by the Blue Noah's combat effectiveness, that they've authorized a formal military cooperation agreement. Captain Hayami, the Empire wishes to exchange tactical knowledge with your Earth Defense Force. We'll teach you about Klingon weapons technology, and you'll share your gravitational weapons principles. A fair trade between warriors. Shin felt a surge of cautious hope. Advanced Klingon weapons technology adapted to Earth Defense Force doctrine could shift the balance of power against the Gotham in his universe. If he could ever return home with that knowledge. I'll need to consult with my superiors, Shin began carefully, then stopped. He had no superiors anymore. The chain of command existed in a different universe, defending an Earth he couldn't reach. Here, he was the ranking Earth Defense Force officer by default. The decision was his. I accept, Commander Kor. But I have a condition. Any technology exchange includes training for Federation personnel as well. We fought together, we should benefit together. Kor's expression showed brief surprise, then grudging respect. You think like a Klingon, but with Federation idealism corrupting your warrior's heart. Very well. The Empire will agree to three-way technology sharing. Though I warn you, Kirk, Klingon training methods are significantly more rigorous than your Starfleet Academy. I'm sure we'll manage, Commander, Kirk replied with amusement. The three commanders stood together at the viewport, watching repair crews work on their damaged vessels. 3 ships from 3 different philosophies, Federation idealism, Klingon warrior culture, and Earth Defense Force survival pragmatism, had forged an alliance in fire and blood. Captain Hayami, Kirk said after a long silence, I've been talking with Starfleet Science Command. They're fascinated by the dimensional rift phenomenon. With enough research, they believe it might be possible to safely reopen a controlled passage to your universe. Not soon, but eventually. You might find your way home. Shin felt his chest tighten. Home. Earth, still fighting the Gotham Empire. His family, his original crew's families, everyone depending on the Blue Noah to defend humanity's survival. The thought of returning, of rejoining that desperate war, filled him with complex emotions, duty, fear, hope, and something approaching dread. How long? He asked. Years, probably. The dimensional physics involved are extremely complex. But Captain, while you're here, you have a place with us. The Federation would welcome your crew, your ship, your experience. We've faced the Gotham together and won. We'd face whatever comes next together too. Shin looked at the Blue Noah, then at the Enterprise, then at the Klothos. 3 ships that should have been rivals or at best neutral parties. Instead, they'd become something unprecedented, a genuine alliance forged through shared sacrifice. I'll stay, Shin decided. For now, at least. My crew and I will work with the Federation and the Klingon to prepare defenses in case the Gotham find another way through. And we'll help fight whatever threats face this universe. Because you're right, Captain Kirk, we did more than just survive that battle. We proved that different philosophies working together are stronger than any single approach. Kirk extended his hand. Welcome to the neighborhood, Captain Hayami. Shin accepted the handshake, then found himself in a bone-crushing embrace as Kor grabbed both captains simultaneously. Excellent. We'll drink blood wine, share battle stories, and plan glorious future victories. This alliance will be legendary. As the 3 commanders laughed, Kirk with amusement, Kor with fierce joy, and Shin with something approaching genuine hope, the stars beyond the viewport shone with possibilities that hadn't existed a week ago. The dimensional rift was sealed. The Gotham invasion stopped. But more importantly, the Blue Noah had found what the Earth Defense Force had lost years ago in the grinding warfare against the Gotham, allies who fought not out of calculation, but out of genuine partnership. In his universe, humanity stood alone against extinction. Here, Shin and his crew had found something rare and precious, a civilization that valued cooperation over conquest, diversity over conformity, and principles over pure survival. It wasn't the war they'd expected to fight. It wasn't the universe they'd expected to defend. But it was worth fighting for nonetheless. And somewhere across dimensional barriers, in a universe where Earth still burned under Gotham bombardment, perhaps the knowledge and alliances forged here would someday return to shift the balance of that desperate war. But that was a hope for tomorrow. Today, the Blue Noah's crew would repair their ship, honor their dead, and learn what it meant to be part of something larger than survival. They would learn what it meant to be part of a genuine alliance. Captain Shin turned from the viewport and headed toward the medical bay to check on his wounded crew. Behind him, Kirk and Kor continued discussing tactical improvements and future cooperation. Around them, the Federation's machinery worked to heal wounds and rebuild strength. The Battle of the Rift was over. The war for survival continued. But for the first time in 5 years, the Blue Noah wasn't fighting that war alone. And that, Shin reflected, made all the difference. The space carrier Blue Noah had arrived in the Star Trek universe as a displaced weapon of desperation, a warship torn from total war and dropped into a dimension that valued exploration over conquest. What followed was a collision of philosophies that should have ended in tragedy: military pragmatism meeting diplomatic idealism, survival calculation confronting principled cooperation, isolated warfare encountering genuine alliance. Instead, Captain Shin Hayami and his Earth Defense Force crew discovered something their own universe had forgotten in 5 years of grinding warfare against the Gotham Empire: that diversity of approach creates strength no single philosophy can match. Kirk's Federation idealism prevented the alliance from becoming purely transactional. Kor's Klingon warrior culture provided the aggressive tactics necessary against an enemy that respected only force. And the Blue Noah's survival-honed expertise offered the hard-won lessons of fighting extinction daily. The dimensional rift remained sealed, permanently separating two universes. But in closing that barrier, three ships from radically different cultures had forged bonds that would reshape both the Federation and the Klingon Empire's understanding of warfare, cooperation, and what it meant to defend civilization itself. For the Blue Noah's crew, the question of returning home remained unanswered, a possibility measured in years rather than weeks, dependent on scientific breakthroughs that might never come. But stranded in this universe, they'd found something as valuable as victory, purpose beyond mere survival, allies who fought beside them rather than simply using them, and the chance to defend a humanity that, while not their own, deserved protection nonetheless. The Gotham Empire would return eventually, they always did, in one form or another. But when they came, they would face not a single desperate warship, but a genuine alliance of civilizations who had learned to combine their strengths and compensate for their weaknesses. Captain Shin stood on the Blue Noah's repaired bridge 3 months later, watching as his carrier took position alongside the Enterprise and Klothos for joint training exercises. Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency, but now that efficiency included coordinated protocols with Starfleet and Klingon vessels, integrated communications networks, and tactical doctrines that blended three military philosophies into something unprecedented. In his universe, the war continued. Earth fought alone against impossible odds. But here, across dimensional barriers, the knowledge being forged in cooperation and sacrifice might someday return to shift that balance. It was a slim hope, but hope nonetheless. And as the three ships accelerated toward their training coordinates, moving in perfect coordination despite their different origins, Captain Shin allowed himself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, the universe had brought the Blue Noah here for a reason. Not to escape their war, but to learn how to win it.